flipping scare me. You got something to say, use your name, or you come see me. Obviously you know where I am if you have my email address. Come do it to my face. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you think you are. Hi everyone. This video is going to be addressed to everyone who seems to feel that they have a right to cuss out me or anybody else. You know, can't do anything about what you do to anybody else. But listen, you little flippin' scary pansy wussies. I'm gonna keep it clean because your language is absolutely beyond disgusting. Where are your mothers? Did they honestly teach you to treat women like this? You think you're cool? You think you're bad? You think I'm going to be scared because you call me these names and you threaten me with an alias in an email? I don't get scared that way. You don't scare me. You can't flipping scare me. You got something to say, use your name, or you come see me. Obviously you know where I am if you have my email address. Come do it to my face. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you think you are. I'm tired of it. Clean up your language. If you talk to me like a decent human being, I will be glad to have a conversation with you. But honestly, how immature and stupid can you be? I'm not taking anything down. I have not slandered anybody. I have not accused people. Have I said people are people of interest? And if you're one of those, and if that's who this is, then that is your fault because of what you have left in the evidence. Now, making you a person of interest is not saying you did this, but I find it awfully disturbing. Every single one of David's friends, you do nothing but call that man the F word. You call his wife the F word. You even refer to the daughter as crazy and an emotional wreck. And you guys are his friends? Really? I have no words for you. No words for you at all. You know what? Save it. Either tell me who you are and you be upfront about it, or just shut up. Hi YouTube, it's Catherine Michelle. I'm back briefly. I'm going to do a quick video today. I have not given up on the case, and I'm not done by any means or any stretch of the imagination. I'm still researching it, but dealing with some personal health issues and also issues with the laptop. Yay, right? Gotta love laptop issues. I'm not supposed to be using it right now. It tends to overheat and yeah, ugly things start to happen. So I'm gonna make this quick. But the laptop should be fixed within a week, so yay. But I'm researching, in the meantime, I'm researching things like the affidavits and what they've requested, and then what did the information show that they found, especially the parts that I'm interested in. As we know, there were affidavits requesting cell phone information and all of the laptop information and all of his notes, David's notes and everything, because they were trying to show a motive. And yet, okay, that's what they're stating in their affidavit, but then later their detective Clonico states, after he reviews everything, that there was no motive. So we have the police, Apple Valley Police Department, blaming David and listing him as a spouse abuser and a domestic violence person and all of this stuff based on no motive, zero motive. And I'm trying to figure out, why did they do this? I don't even think they know. But anyway, that's what I'm looking for, and that's what I'm searching on at this point. So be patient. But in the meantime, and I know this has been out there with others, but I'm going to read an email that David had sent to Jason Allen. This was written on December 17th, 2014, a month before their bodies were discovered, a little less than a month. They were discovered on January 17th. But For the police department and all of those others out there who want to say that David snapped, you know who you are. You didn't do your job in researching this very well. And for everyone else, I want you to hear David's words, hear what he says, and then decide for yourself if this sounds like a man who snapped or a man who just decided he didn't have anything to live for. Here we go. Written on December 17th, 2014, David Crowley's own words to Jason Allen. Hello, Jason. I hope you've been well. I can't imagine much keeping you down. I'm pretty excited to be reaching out to you, I gotta say. As big and important as Gray State seems to be to everyone, I'll tell you the truth. After all the attention in 2012 and subsequent invisible development and networking, it's almost completely abandoned. Not by me, of course, but by the previous standing core team. Maybe the workload got too crazy. I don't know the personal reasons, but at the end of it all, here I am at the end of the tunnel all alone. I want to stop here because this is where a lot of people take this completely out of context and they're like saying, oh, see, he felt despondent. He's not despondent here. He's saying that everybody who was working with him left him, abandoned him, and he's doing it by himself. But the project is still going. He goes, the fans continue to gather, but they're frustrated and despondent. No one believes anymore. But that's all the illusion. It assumes I haven't been working 18-hour days for many years, building this into an empire and keeping it pure from outside influence, which of course I have been. Here's the situation. In a few weeks, you'll be able to watch a 2.5-hour documentary, a manifesto on the Gray State model called The Rise, completely in tandem with a few trailers for a Gray State series that has an integrated storyline with multiple feature films. Gray State fans are growing at a rate of 100 to 200 per day even now, and when I get started, I can only expect they'll keep coming. My wife Kamel and I are quietly and fervently putting all this into place, and no one else, and I mean no one else, is at all involved in the project's decision-making process or finances. You know the story that they keep telling you that they isolated and they were breaking away? Do you see where their narrative doesn't fit the reality? They were being alone because they were working to finish this project. Kamel is helping me finally database the network of professionals, actors, and concerned citizens, basically the wealth of the interest Gray State has drawn over the years in the form of pledges of service, real industry contacts, with which you are probably already intimately connected. Hundreds of offers, dozens of sponsors, an email list of 1,200, and over 50,000 in social media contact, which is growing by the day. It is a time bomb of public interest. Standing offers you wouldn't believe. Apps, video games, the works. I can't even begin to explain over email. I can't even keep it all in my head, especially with what's going on in the news and how keyed up people are for some kind of hope. I have no idea how much money is going to come together when this kicks off, here in a few weeks. But it might be enough to get started on a series, then independent features running a common storyline, all run by an interstate network of committed individual professionals who can organize all these assets and operate outside of the traditional money-making sphere of media distribution, instead creating something largely made by the people and assembled by those pure few who control the project's finances, which at the moment is only me. Which means no strings attached at all. Think of it, man. When you see The Rise and the new trailers for the Gray State series, you'll know what I mean when I say I have followed my heart at every step. I think you already do. At this moment, I don't even know what kind of people I need because I'm exhausted from carrying and managing this burden for so many years. But you know what I need. Jason, you know exactly what to do with this. You know which casting agency I need, how to manage the flow of interest, which writers can come together, which states would work as locations for which scenes, actors we can reach out to, publicity people, the North Dakota bank you've been telling me about. I have a feeling you know exactly who to reach, who is appropriate to work with, and I trust your connection to the ideals you have perceived in Gray State since they are my own. Jason, please mull this over. I don't mean to assume you even want to be an executive producer, and I'd guess you don't even have the time to consider it, but the offer stands. I believe that you can translate the coming buzz into a trustworthy team, and together we can create viable and effective art. At your convenience, sir. Cheers, David. Please tell me, where in any of this do you hear the rantings and ravings of someone who's about to snap? It's not there. Instead, this is a man who's excited about his dream, is coming to fruition. All of their work is being put into it. He's telling Jason how he and Kamel are working night and day, and they're doing it quietly and on their own to finish it. They were fully focused on this project. It breaks my heart. He had such high hope. This is not the writing of someone who's going to turn around, which they then say. Again, keep in mind that this is written December 17th, and they're saying 9 days later, according to them, not according to what the evidence shows, but according to them, 9 days later, he kills his wife, his daughter, and then himself. It doesn't, we've said it doesn't fit so many times, but it's ludicrous. There is no motive. This man's motive was his dream that was coming true. So mull that over, people. Think about it. This is David, an excitement. And yes, he worked hard. And it was him. And he states right here that his core team abandoned them. And I wonder why. Because the so-called core team are the ones who are saying that David was pushing them away. When in David's own words, he's saying they left. And yet, all of a sudden, they still want to hold on to Gray State and the money that it has the potential to bring in. I really hope and pray that whoever's holding this script understands that copyright law states that that copyrighted material, which is David's, maintains his, and only his, for 50 years after his death. Now, did you do that on purpose? Well, whoever did this, whoever killed this man, did you do that on purpose knowing that the whole entire project would not be able to be touched for 50 years after his death because copyright law? That's one way to shut him up, isn't it? Hi, everyone. Today we're going to be going over blood spatter that was found in the Crowley home. And I will be showing you quite a few pictures and then the edits I have done to help bring out either the blood spatter, the pattern, or, images behind the pattern like the quote-unquote footprints. I figured out how they did it, and we will go over that. And it turns out that if you remember in another video, I said I thought that it looked like there was a bloody handprint on the floor. That's exactly what it was, and I will show you that photo as well with the edits so you can see that it actually is a handprint. And then the different stages of the blood drying. You will see clotted blood, you will see skeletonized blood, and you will also see actual just blood spatter, which, and all of those indicate separate events. That tells you and everybody that they were injured, hurt, beat, or whatever at different times. They didn't die right away. This wasn't just a simple gunshot to the head, as we know. And it wasn't also about the dog eating them. Somebody did this damage to them and they tortured them for a while, which is very, very sad. It's taken me so long to do this because every time I'd get to a new slide and I would see new proof, I just couldn't take it. Okay, sorry about the interruption. The first thing you will notice on the slides that you will see next, sorry about that, turning up the volume on the computer, you're going to see the mathematical equations that were done to figure out the angle, the degree of angle of where the blood spatter was coming from. And then the next slide after that, you will see a sample on slide where it shows the item number 19. And you will see a straight line of blood, and then you will see two other forms of blood, one which is skeletonized and one that is just a regular medium velocity blood spatter. They're both medium velocity, both the skeletonized and the other one. And then you'll see the arrow. Look at the arrow as it's going through the blood. It might be hard to see, but it'll be a thin black line with an arrow at the end. One of them is going this way, another is going this way. So we have on this particular photograph that they took, there are two directions of blood flow. And on a couple of the others, you will see 3, sometimes 4 different directions of blood flow. That means that whoever was bleeding was, and when you see the drop, and then what they call the tail, you'll see a big spot, and then it kind of tapers off. That's called the tail. That means that the person was going this direction. They were moving this way when the blood fell, and it went this way. And so when you see the tail coming this way, they were moving this way, the blood drops, and it goes this way. So you'll see on this one where you see the tail, the arrow going up like this, you know that whoever's blood was that, they were going in this direction, trying to move. And then another point, they were going this way, trying to move this way as the blood then drops this way. It gets a little confusing, but look at that blood and it will tell you so much information. They were hit multiple times. This is not a David snapping and just shooting Kamel in the head and shooting Rania in the head and then shooting himself. And then that's just a convenient little simple cleanup. That's not what happened. They were, like I said before, systematically beaten and during over an extended period of time. In the second picture you will see where you'll have like the little diagram with explaining things. In that particular one alone are 2 separate events. At least 2, maybe 3 on that one. Excuse me, 3. And as we'll go down farther, I will stop and we'll see, and I'll show you where there's blood direction coming from, at least 3 directions on that one. So again, I'm going to stop here. I'll let you view some more videos, some pictures in the video, and then I'll jump back in later. Okay, and on this section, you're going to see the bloody handprints on the ground. You see a left handprint and a right handprint, clear as day, and I will do the edits so as you keep looking. First you have the initial photos that you just see the blood, and this is where it's coagulated / clotted blood. And this tells you that it was older blood. It takes 3 to 15 minutes for blood to coagulate and clot on the ground. So obviously they had been bleeding. That blood had been on the ground a while before the other spatter had taken place. But look at that. And you can see this part of the left hand and the thumb, and these two, it's like this, almost like they landed like this. And you can see just barely the outline of the right hand as well. Look at those photos. That tells you whoever is injured at least landed on their hands. And take a look at that and review the rest of the photos. And then the section after the bloody handprints, which is what you should have just seen, is you will see the wall by the front door. And then look at the edits that follow that. And in purple, I did it in purple because that showed up pretty good. You will see the drops of blood on the wall. That, to me, looks like cast off. It is not coming from a gunshot wound, and it's not coming from any type of an angle, because they're just drops of blood on the wall. So that tells me it was probably cast off from something that was swung to hit whoever, and I don't know whose blood that is, but that person was hit, and then whatever they were hit with as the person was doing their follow through on their swing or whatever, that blood then spattered onto that wall. And then the next pictures after that are going to be the blood that's behind the chair in the entryway. And you will see where there are like strings, I don't want to call it strings, like straight lines sort of blood, along with blood spatter. And I don't know if that was, did they drop something and drag it? Was there a tarp or something that they use have too much blood on it, and as they were moving it? Don't know. And it's just not enough information. However, it's just to show you that you have straight lines of blood, and then you have the spatter as well. Two separate incidences. Okay, these next few pictures show the blood on the floor that is in the entryway between the chair and then the wall. We just have a couple of those, and take a look at those briefly, and then we'll go on to the next important section. Okay, the final part of this is the part that I really want you to pay close attention to. This is the quote-unquote bloody footprints. They're not footprints at all, and I can prove it to you, and I will be proving it to you. These prints were made with someone using a gloved hand. It's a simple art project that a lot of people will use. You take your hand and you kind of make this kind of now remember, they've got a glove on because there are no prints in this. It's just strictly flat out blood. So they take this part of your hand and you're using only this section. The pinky here makes the little toe. This makes the quote-unquote arch of the foot, of the ball of the foot. You take that and they put blood on that, and then they put that on the floor. But before they did that, they had an imprint. And when you look at the pictures, I edited out or brought up what was underneath what they used as a baseline to make these footprints. You'll be able to see it plain as day. They made like I don't know what they used to do this at first, but it was whatever it was. You can see the outline that they used to make their prints. Simple as day. You make these, put blood there. They then put it on the floor. Then dipped their finger in blood and made the rest of the quote-unquote toes. The so-called big toe, I'm not quite sure how they did that one, if they just took some blood and just kind of made like almost a question mark, but you will see it. You look at these photos, pause this video when you get to those photos and look at it. You will see it. They have one of it plain as day, pinky being the little toe, and then there's like another section. You see it end where and then they kind of did another one. And then on the other photos, on the next set of footprints, you will see where they actually just drew a circle, put a drop of blood or whatever. I think they drew a circle on that one. And then you see where they just took blood and drug their finger down to make it look like that's what a toe was. Guys, we got you dead to rights. The jig is up. They're not footprints. They're not. It's a simple child's art project. Look it up. Google the term how to make footprints using your hand. There are several videos out there that will show you how to do it, and you will see what I mean. But that's exactly what you did. I now have proof. We now have proof that these are not footprints. And if these aren't a bloody footprint, again, David didn't do this. He was murdered. This was staged, and very, very poorly. To you out there who did this, and I have a feeling you watch all of our videos, you are busted. I may not be able to pinpoint who you are, but you're busted. For the rest of you, look at these, and my heart breaks to know what this family went through at the hands of these people who are still running free. And they're in your neighborhood out there in Minnesota. They're still there. These people are walking around your neighborhood, and you should be on the police to make sure that these guys are caught, apprehended, and thrown in prison for what they did. I don't think I would want, I know I wouldn't want them running around in my neighborhood. Look at these photos. And at the end, I'm going to put a picture of the family. So not only will you see this beautiful family, but I want those of you who did this, as you're watching, go to the end. Stare at this family, because I know you do. I think you relive this every day, and I think you're pretty happy about what you did. But this beautiful family and this man who was the scapegoat for your crime needs to be shown to the world. He loved his family. He loved everything he did. He was a veteran. He was a war veteran. He was injured over there. And he was a writer, a filmmaker, and a phenomenal human being. Did he have his faults? We all have our faults. But you guys, plural, this was done by more than one of you. Yeah, I'm narrowing you down, and I think I have you actually pinpointed, and I'm not the only one. There are a bunch of us who have it pinpointed. But no proof. So what do we do without the proof? I can't do anything. But as of right now, you're free to walk. And that makes me sick. This family deserves justice. For the rest of you, look at this ridiculous kindergarten artwork of these so-called footprints. Hi everyone, I wanted to jump in here real quick and talk about this piece of paper, the one that shows the mathematical configurations of the degree of angle that the blood spatter actually hit the floor, made impact. We have anywhere from, what's the smallest degree I think I have here, is like 14.5 degrees. So that's at a very low angle, like toward the floor. Anywhere up to, what's my highest, like 40 degrees. So again, as I've said before, these were multiple events. They did not happen at the same time. We have different types of blood. We have coagulated blood, we have regular blood stains, and then we have skeletonized blood stains, and they are all going a lot of times in different directions, 3-4 different directions. So that means who's ever, and I went back and looked through the reports to see if they actually ran tests on whose blood that it belonged to when they swabbed them. They took a swab, but these are not, the results are not showing up in the reports that I have. So as far as I know, they didn't test all of the blood. They only tested certain parts of it. And these particular spatter patterns were swabbed, but were not tested. So I don't know who this was that was moving around. But if it could have been two of them at once. I don't know. We don't know. Until they actually test that blood and give the results, we won't know whose blood is on this floor and who's on the walls. We have some on this one and then one right by the door. Anyway, the lower degree angles, that's at 13, 14, 15%, that's going to be closer to the floor. Say this is a plane that's maybe about here. And then we have the 40, the 30, anywhere from 30 to 40 degree angle, that's going to be more like up here. So, they could have been standing, it could have been, maybe it was Camille because she was smaller, she was shorter, or if it was David and he was sitting in the chair, and that's maybe how the blood got on the corner of the chair. We don't know. That's pure speculation. However, I just thought I needed to explain that, the different degrees of angle, and I found them anywhere, again, from 14 to 15% degree of angle up to, 14.5 degree angle forget I said percent, 14.5 degrees of angle all the way up to 40-degree angles. And again, multiple events. This was not a one-time shoot somebody in the head and you leave and you commit suicide. This was torture, and it went on for a while. And now we're going to go into the very last set of footprints, the ones that were created with the kindergarten paint your finger, stick it on the floor type thing. And that explains why there was only the right foot. There was never a left foot anywhere. It was just the right. And it makes so much sense now because none of these bloody footprints ever made sense. They had a gloved hand. They had it in this position. They put blood on this part of their hand. They stick it on the floor. This creates the pinky. And then you can see where they dipped their finger in blood and then made toe prints. And when you look at the shadow, and especially pay attention to where the big toe is, you'll see like a whole complete circle. It's totally separate. And you see underneath this blood where they laid down some sort of pattern to follow to create that footprint. And man, you guys did a bad job. It was obvious it wasn't a footprint to begin with, but wow, really. Next time be a little more creative. Oh, I pray to God there's not a next time. But the next time you play art and do painting on a picture, you might want to try to hone your craft a little bit better because this is so obvious. Yeah, I'm being snarky. Sorry, but after looking at this and after spending days and weeks crying and shaking and walking and pacing the floor at night wondering how you could do this to somebody, the brutality that you showed in what you did, there are no words for that. There just are none. And how you live with yourself and how you go from day to day out there wandering the streets free. And you may not believe in God. You may be an atheist. But you know what? It doesn't matter what you believe. It's what is. And you'll meet your maker one day. And you will stand in judgment for what you've done. All of you. Every last one of you.
Hello, my name is Dan Hennon. I'm joined today with Greg Fernandez Jr. We'll be talking about the Crowley family deaths in bodies were discovered January of 2015. Today is March 2nd of 2017. Welcome, Greg.
Thanks, Dan.
And what we're going to cover today is there never has been an episode or discussion on this case regarding the dog. The dog, the Crowley family dog, was a male 1-year-old beagle mix named Paleo. And I guess the main concern was after the bodies were found, the family of 3 were dead in December of 2014. The dog survived for over 3 weeks additionally in that home before the bodies were found by the neighbors on January 17th of 2015. And after looking the police report photos, we don't see water dish, water bowl, food bowl, whatnot. And we think that common sense tells us the dog would have obviously finished off the water in the water dishes, but then after those were emptied, what was the dog's next source of water in the home for drinking water? And all we have is the pictures from the police reports that show the 3 bathrooms. And so I think tonight we'll spend some time going through the options for the dog, and what it used to drink from. The bodies were in the home, and those also speculate that the dog could have fed off the bodies for food, which it appears that he did, and scavenged and ravaged the bodies. But for drinking, did the dog drink the blood? Maybe, maybe not. But I know that a dog needs drinking water, fresh drinking water, every day, if not multiple times a day, just to survive. And once that runs out, what are the options? I mean, the dog did look skinny and gaunt, I believe, when police arrived. But anyway, it's a topic that I think needs to be explored at least a little bit for this home. What are your thoughts on the drinking water for the dog?
Yeah, I was just wondering. I don't believe the police ever really mentioned which toilets were open and which ones weren't. Did they?
No, they never did. And we tried to get this from them, and even I think from the family, to say, a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom home there in Apple Valley where they lived. Online records show that there is only 2 bathrooms in that house. And some said, well, they think the toilet lids were up. No, we think they were closed. And so I think you and I at the beginning of this case were met with some frustration with no one really knew about the toilet seats, not even the police.
Wow.
So we had to wait till the police photos came out, and that's when it was revealed that David had indeed remodeled that basement and added a bathroom in the basement. So there was a total of 3 toilets in the home. And then when the police photos came out, we were able to ascertain, for the viewers looking on this screen, I've got the 3 photos up on the screen. The master bathroom was closed. The lid, in fact, was closed, so the dog didn't have access there. The image on the top left in the main floor bathroom that Ranny used, the lid was open, but it appears to be a diaper or a couple paper towels in that toilet. And then the bottom one in the basement, wide open, completely gone. It looks like all the water was drained out of that. The dog at least looked like that was the main source of water for that dog. So we really have a total of 3, with only 2 options for the dog after the water dishes, were emptied. The dog Paleo only had 2 options to drink water from. Now, early on, with that whole back sliding glass door being left open, there was concern when we brought this up that people thought, well, the dog had enough room to be able to get in and out, and it was left open for the dog to go outside and eat the snow there in the winter in Minnesota. Well, there was no snow during that time. The door was not left open. It was unlocked and ajar, but it wasn't enough for the dog to freely go out and in. So we can rule out all those random scenarios, I think. And really it comes down to 2 things. With all of the police photos, over 430, I believe, we received. Number one, the striking thing that I thought was strange, of all the details of photographs that police took of pictures in the home, not one showed a dog food bowl, not one showed a dog water bowl, not one showed that even it appeared that a dog even lived there. There was no utility room, didn't show a big bag of Purina dog chow, in the corner that was that the family used. There was no evidence of even dog food, much less water. So that I thought was just strange in and of itself. But the one room, and you can confirm this too, Greg, the only one room that they never photographed, or we didn't receive photographs from the police photos, was that room with the sliding glass door with the fireplace. And that's the only room that we never got photos from every other room in that house, every square inch was covered by photographs, but nothing in there. So perhaps the water dish and everything was in that main room. But we never received, photographs of anything in that room.
No.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, and it's like, why not? Like, why didn't we get anything from that room there? Especially when they took several photos of the slider, of that rear slider, from the outside view. It makes sense. Why wouldn't they take it from the inside view too?
Correct. And the bodies were nowhere near that. The bodies were in the front living room in front of that picture window is where the 3 bodies were allegedly found. So there would have been no reason to censor or filter out photos from leaking out of that back room where that sliding glass door faced the outside, the backyard, of the home. There shouldn't have been anything there from the crime scene related to filter out or censor photos being distributed from the back room. But you're right, of the 430 photos we received, not a single one was from that back room, which also came up with the question of David's workout equipment. When the day after, the week after the cleaners were there, the pickup truck was backed up to the house, a pickup truck owned by Mason Hendricks, and Danny Crowley Jr. was there with some others, and they were loading up all of David's workout equipment that was allegedly owned by Danny Crowley Jr. And after police suggested there might be looting in the home in the neighborhood there after such a big crime, we're told to get out any valuables sooner than later. So they backed up the pickup truck, took out all the workout equipment. But when we went back later and asked, with 430 photos of the crime scene, none showed any workout equipment at all. So what was it that Mr. Crowley Jr. there and Hendricks were moving from the house? So that's grounds for another episode probably altogether. But I didn't see any workout equipment in that home at all. Much less, and that was filmed. The pictures were taken the same day the bodies were found. So I didn't see anything from that front main room. No water dish for the dog. No food dish for the dog. And no workout equipment. But tonight's episode will be focused on the toilet bowls here as we'll get further into that. But it does seem strange that one room was left out altogether of any photos whatsoever. So just to get the ball rolling here, here is I'll go through the pictures of the photographs from the crime scene, the police released crime scene photos. Here's the large photo of the main floor bathroom. Randy used. It's got the picture of Minnie Mouse there beneath, but toilet lid was open. The water in the bowl was dirty, contaminated, but almost empty, as if a paper towel or something dirty was thrown in there, obviously by a person. So it does appear that the dog drank the dirty water down to almost finishing.
Because, well, I don't know, because that toilet seat looks really, really clean. I'm not seeing any marks. I'm not seeing any proof that a dog, I mean, especially, I don't know. I mean, that was always a strange thing here. It's like, you would find something, right? I mean, is there any proof that there was a dog here, that a dog was actually, at this toilet? The only thing I see in the lower right corner, it looks like somebody wiped the lid of the toilet seat. That's what I see. So maybe somebody cleaned it after or something, but to me, it's like, it's really, really clean, but yet it's really, really dirty, and then it has that, what I guess we thought was maybe some paper towels.
Yeah.
So I hope they actually swabbed those.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. I wouldn't believe they would have done anything there with the evidence as far as swabbing that, but it certainly would have been a good point. Now, what you're talking about, Greg, with the toilet seat being so clean is, the dog would have had to mount himself up there with the front 2 legs to get down into that water to drink. And now if there's blood throughout the house, the front paws would have been dirty, and that toilet seat would have been dirty is what you're getting at, with some sort of stains in that house, tracking through blood all over the place.
Oh yeah, and someone in the chat room just brought up that there was no hair. I mean, yeah, like I'm not seeing any dog hair, anything like that. It's, I don't know. It's just, yeah.
And so this photograph is very strange. Whatever. Now, toilet water over the 3 weeks not being used there is going to potentially evaporate some into the air, but not that much. There's not much left in there. And the dog, if Paleo would have been drinking the water there in the bowl, could have gotten ill or sick or whatever in there with the waste in that toilet. It wouldn't have been healthy per se, but it does not look like a dog was up reaching in there to drink. Now, a large dog like a Great Dane or something like that could drink the water from a toilet bowl just from standing on the floor and wouldn't have to get his paws up there. But Paleo was a year-old, mid-sized, probably a 20-pound, 25-pound dog that may have been able to get in there, but to get the water down that low would have had to mount himself up there with his front two paws to get up there to reach. And like you're saying, that toilet looks way too clean for any type of activity of a dog.
Right, and then I mean, does that look like it's pee, right? It looks like piss, and it looks like a couple paper towels, or is it something that has come up from the toilet, or maybe a mixture? I don't know. I mean, but there's not much there, and it doesn't look like the dog really struggled to get in there to drink that water, and I can understand why.
Yeah, to me, my opinion with that, the color of the water there looks darker than what urine would look like. So, Randy may have been using that toilet there, and it didn't flush maybe the last time, and then everything dissolved into a dark substance, and then maybe throwing some paper towels or some paper in there or whatnot. I'm not even sure what that is, but I find that hard to believe that the dog was in that particular toilet bowl. I'm going to go to the next one here.
Yeah, I mean this photo here is probably how the police found this toilet, right?
Well, it has
maybe
it has to be as a crime scene photo. It has to be, and that has to be the assumption we have to make as outsiders looking at this, is that nothing was touched before they took the photos. Now, if the police and the investigators were in there opening or closing the seat, then we've got other issues. But we already know that they did move around some evidence in the house, some crime scene evidence in the house, and then took pictures later, which we're still bewildered as to why that took place. But I'm going to go with the three photos we're going to show here tonight under the assumption that they were not disturbed before the police got there and took the pictures as they were. Now, this photo is the master bedroom upstairs in the main level. The toilet seat, in fact, closed. No option for the dog to get into that whatsoever. So I believe that this picture is, I think, a moot point here for the dog.
Well, I mean, this one kind of shows that maybe a dog was there, and so that's kind of what I'm looking at. There's two things here. There's on that toilet seat cover, there is what looks like spots of blood. So maybe that came from the dog, because I know in this same bathroom here, on the sink, it looks like there is a lot of different spots of blood, and maybe that's, I mean, so.
Yep, and that could be, and that could very well be the case. The dog up there, going around the house there after getting blood on the paws, that could certainly be the case.
Maybe a dog looking for water. Maybe the dog was trying to get up to the sink to try to get some water or something. I mean, to me, that's the only thing that really makes sense. But yeah. So this one, yeah, there's no way the dog's gonna lift that seat up and put it down.
Yeah, I think for the purpose of this of this episode here, regardless of what's on the toilet, you bring up some very good points, but I think the whole point is moot here with the dog being able to access any water in this bathroom at all. Here's the, I'm going to switch to the next photo here in the basement. David Crowley refinished the basement, or the bathroom at least, and it looks like you can tell here by the back of the wall that it never was even complete. But the tile was down, the toilet was in place, the lid was left up, as if a male was the last person to use that toilet. Both lids were up, and the water appears to be completely emptied or drained out of there, or drank by the dog. So my guess, just by looking at this, is that the dog would have been, once again, drinking out of this. May not have needed paws to be up on the ledge, but that also, that toilet does look, appear to be clean as well. Doesn't have any bloody footprints from a dog paw prints. It just looks clean, but it does look like the water was drained out and the dog drank from it.
Well, there does look like there's a bloody spot on the upper left corner of that toilet seat. There's something there that kind of looked like blood. Yeah, no, and the other crazy thing about this one is that we don't get a close-up of it. We got a close-up of the other one, but for some reason we don't get a real close-up of how much water or what the water looked like from this toilet, which I thought was kind of strange too.
And
there's a lot of toilet paper there too. But
that's a good point you bring up, Greg. In going back with the police photos, that other toilet that had the Minnie Mouse, that one that Randy used, there was, I think, no less than 3 photos police took of that bathroom, of that toilet. A bird's eye view looking straight down, and two other angles. Whereas this bathroom, there's just, a couple shots of the forward looking, but not once looking straight down, which is yet another inconsistency as far as how they make the photographs here. It would have been nice to see this one looking straight down, as it's very important, I believe, with that dog in that house. But so we can conclude, I think, that when the dog finished drinking the water, Paleo went most likely to this to gain access to water. This basement toilet is what I'm guessing. I don't know what to make of that one in the Randy's bathroom with the paper towels. Maybe got to that one, but it leads us to the next question. How many quarts are basically in a typical toilet, and how much does a dog drink in a day? And if you do the math, it still doesn't come out to 21 days worth of water. And so I'm going to bring up now some options as far as what, I know we got listeners from all over outside of the U.S. and in other countries, but typically here in the United States, I've got some photos here of what a typical dog water dish looks like that Paleo may have had. And if we can get, hopefully, someone to comment on this video, or someone who's been in the house or the home and can say, look, here's the kind of dog watering systems that Paleo had. If it was one of those that was pre-filled, and as the dog drank it, it ran out, that could give an extra day or an extra week for the dog to drink. But the options on the right, those 2 photos on the right, typically that's going to be a day or 2 before that water's gone at the most for a typical dog. That's not going to last long at all. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, what else could the dog have done? We don't see any dog bowls. We see the toilets. So, did the dog not have a dog bowl? I mean, that doesn't seem right? So, I mean, it's just like, again, and then yeah, like, Okay, so how long would that last for? I mean, you've been saying, okay, they have the biggest dog bowl. How long would that really last for water? Hmm? Yeah, and I think what the cops have said is they think that the dog lived off of the bodies, right? So I mean, was the dog drinking up blood? I mean, there's no evidence of that either, right? I mean,
Yeah,
as far as
that was brought up too, and I think I had my microphone cut off there for a bit, and I just wanted to reiterate the fact that the dog would have scavenged the bodies after the food ran out, which the dog obviously has by the sounds of it. But it would have caused the dog to get additionally thirsty, I think, by eating that. So it would have gone through that much more water, I believe. But
so.
I think it's plausible. You know, the dog used up the water, went to the toilets, and then was found 3 weeks later and was skinny and gaunt. But that's pushing the limits. I think a water system to the left on that picture with that drinking system, I still think would have lasted no longer than 1 week. That thing would have been empty.
Mhm.
And then so 2 weeks to live off 2 weeks from the toilet water bowl, perhaps. But there's not much that water sitting in that bottom of the toilet bowl. It looks more than what's actually there, I think.
Right, which should have been a big part of some of these reports, right? I mean, this should have been a big thing to really say, okay, based on how long the dog lived, based on how long it survived, off of everything there, wouldn't they be able to tell when these murders happened, instead of just guessing that it happened on December 25th or December 26th, based on everything that they could have actually researched about this dog and what this dog went through? They could have probably figured out. They could have narrowed down a much, you know what I mean? I mean, they could have really figured out, okay, how long could this dog really last? Okay, well, this is when these murders happen, or this is when, they say David might have shot himself.
Correct. The other thing, Greg, is it was noticeably absent from that 94-page report anything to do with the dog, and also I believe in the forensics and investigation. I don't believe they as much as took the contents of the dog's stomach and did any testing as far as that was concerned, or anything, any kind of testing from the dog. I think they just took the dog to the pound, and the next day Dan Crowley Jr. picked it up, took it home, and that was really the end of that. But who knows for sure what they actually did? But it would have been nice to get testing, additional analysis on the dog, contents of the dog's stomach, what was in the system of the dog, because to help narrow down the time of death and to work backwards. We've had people on the Justice for Crowley page do the math by saying, look, a 25-pound dog requires X number of ounces a day to drink, and if you multiply that by 3 or 4 weeks, the math doesn't add up unless all 3 of those toilet lids were open. And now we've got evidence here that one for sure was not, and one was filled with waste. One was messed up, and they only really had one of the 3 toilets was really looking good. So I don't believe they did that much research into that from the investigative side.
Yeah, and the other thing is when the cops actually showed up, when they finally showed up, the dog was very active. This was a very active dog. This wasn't a dog that was drained, that was tired, that was on its last leg. This was an angry dog. It was a rabid dog. I mean, they had to actually they had to call a special person in to come and help them take this dog out. And then 2 days later, okay, now the dog's fine. I mean, to me, that was always strange too. But
the other thing, Greg, you bring up a good point, because in reading the police report, the other thing that we stumbled on as well, you're right. One of the officers did bring a catch pole to corral the dog and put it into the back of the pickup truck or the SUV. And one thing that was brought up is the bodies were found about 1 p.m. And the police do say in one section that the vehicle that the dog was in left the crime scene at 7 or 7:30 p.m. that night. And so what leaves us the dilemma there is, was the engine running the entire time with the heat on? Remember Minnesota, the high that day, I think, when the bodies were found, was 25 or 30 degrees. It was below freezing. So was a dog outside in a vehicle for 6 straight hours, just sitting out there freezing, or was the car running? Now, I have a hard time believing the car was running for 6 straight hours, just sitting in the driveway with the dog in the back. And I don't believe they gave him food either. Now, I believe the officers gave the dog some treats, but I don't believe the dog had a full meal. But the dog was sitting there literally for 6 hours after being placed in the vehicle. That to me also doesn't make sense. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things like that just don't make sense. That it's like, why didn't they report this? They always talk about how there was a lot of dog feces found in the house, but they don't show that much. They don't really show, I mean, because that could also help prove, okay, if there's so much dog feces found, then the dog was here by itself for 2, 3, 4 weeks, blah, blah, blah. But it just doesn't seem like they really took that time to really, spend more time on everything that the dog went through to kind of figure out the whole timeline. Their whole timeline is just December 25th, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm just pulling up the weather right now on that file. I just want to see what the weather was. The high was 37 degrees the day the bodies were found. So it was above freezing. But also still cold enough for the. I don't believe the car was running the entire time, wherever it was. But you're right. The dog feces alone, doing the math of that, a dog that size, if it there could be 21 days of activity there, and a dog that size. What we saw in the pictures was small dog droppings scattered throughout the house, maybe a dozen. And I was thinking more around 40 different piles throughout the house of dog waste, and pretty large size. The dog was a pretty good sized dog, medium size. But the little things that we saw in the house were kind of conflicted with what I was envisioning to see. The other thing in the police report was one of the officers said there was dog feces all over the house on the police report. And then one said, yeah, we had to, worry about stepping over the dog feces because there was so much of it. But after looking at the photos, 430 photos we received, once again, it looked like there was about a dozen very small piles of dog droppings. So I don't want to assume that the officers started picking up and removing the waste of the dog. I can't believe that happened, but the stories do conflict. Gregory, you on?
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. I was actually muted.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They do, and I mean, everybody needs to go through these 94 pages. Really read them, because there's many stories on there. There's many reports where it's like this person says this, that person says that, and nothing is followed up on. And then all of a sudden, the case is closed. And
yep.
That's it.
And so I think you can bring up a good point once again. Is we should do a show here coming up perhaps this weekend in the near future and go through that 94-page police report, because that is wild stuff. We've covered bits and pieces of it here and there, but the inconsistencies, like you said, and the stories and the statements taken from these individuals. There could be a whole separate show done on the 94-page police report itself.
Oh yeah. And the only other thing that I think that I would like to make sure that we cover is that the dog is credited with eating a lot of the body parts of his owner. I mean, most of David Crowley's head is missing, right?
Correct.
Mel's arms, both of her hands are missing. Rainey's right arm, the daughter's right arm, her whole right arm is missing. All of this stuff is never followed up on.
Now, Greg, an interesting point there, because I've got two schools of thought here on this. Number one is one of the officers, or I think in the police report, and we'll confirm this, but remembered seeing body parts everywhere was the quote in the police report. Now, we know the bodies were in the front room, 3 bodies in the front living room in front of that picture window, and the dog had ravaged the bodies. Now, it's one thing to say body parts were everywhere, which would actually be plausible, I think, with the dog scavenging the bodies, that body parts would be around the house. But in talking with Officer Gummert himself directly when I went to the station that day, he says, there was no body parts throughout the house. The dog was eating the bodies. And when I challenged him with the phrase of a full-grown man's skull and jawbone is tough to bite through and digest for a dog that size. A little girl's arm going up to the shoulder socket. I can see fingers being eaten, but the main bones, the hard, consistent bones of a child's arm, a man's skull, partial of Comel's skull, and the hands and other body parts that were missing. It's got to go somewhere. Dogs are not going to just digest and chew up an entire adult, I can't imagine, a man's skull. So I would tend to believe there must have been body parts somewhere in that house, but he told me directly that there was nothing left of the house. The dog ate everything. Skull, bones, flesh, fingers, fingernails, everything the dog ate. So
yeah,
that does not jive with common sense, I think, but I'm no expert on that. Maybe people can comment below on this video and leave their thoughts, because I mean, an entire full-grown man's skull being missing, and dog playing with it as a chew toy for a couple of weeks and then, eating the entire thing, it's going to be in the dog remains or scavenged about the house. Now, I don't think the police or the detectives took any of the dog droppings in the house and did further analysis on that. Also, to be able to do analysis of what was in the dog waste. Have you heard anything on that?
No. But they walk into this house. They see that all of these body parts are missing. 2 of these skulls are missing, and they still think that David Crowley is guilty. To me, it really does not make sense. Like, nothing is adding up.
Correct. It's very strange. The entire case is very strange. When is there's going to be an upcoming debate you're having with neighbor Judy, and she might be able to shed some light on this as well. She was never in the house, I don't believe, and then saw the bodies only through the window. Probably couldn't help us out with the toilet lids and where the dog was eating and drinking, but may be able to shed some light on how much the dog would have eaten and drinking from seeing it outside running around in the backyard. They had a fenced-in backyard, I believe, back there, so she may have some insight, but can you inform the listeners of the upcoming debate?
Let's see. So on March 24th at 6 p.m., we are going to have a discussion with someone who's claiming to be the neighbor, Judy Proctor. Now, first, we're going to see if this really is Judy Proctor. And then second, we're going to have Judy Proctor explain why she believes that David Crowley is guilty. And then we can take it from there.
That'll be interesting. So mark your calendars. That should be a good show. Do you have anything else then to wrap up tonight's episode here, Greg? I've covered all my bases, I believe.
No, I think that's it.
All right. Well, what we're hoping to get here from this is I'll post this a video, and we can get hopefully some comments beneath it with those who are experts in the field, I should say, with animals and whatnot and behavior. But for Greg Fernandez Jr., this is Dan Hennon. Today is March 2nd, 2017. And please post your comments below. Thanks for listening.
Okay, I want to preface this video by saying there are going to be 2 photos used in this video that depict an actual crime scene. So if you are under the age of 18 or are squeamish, turn off the video now. Hi YouTube, it's Catherine Michelle. You will remember in a couple of my previous videos I talked about the blue blanket, and I talked about how it had been, the knife had been found located next to David's left leg per the reports, and then the photo that we had only shows the knife and a blue blanket. We're going to stop right here for just a second, and I want you to see the photo that we had to work with before. Okay, what you just saw was just the knife blade and a blue blanket, and as you can tell, it looks like it had been tucked underneath because they said that the knife was found right next to David's left leg. Now take a look at the new evidence that we found, that we actually, Greg Fernandez Jr. received via an FOIA request. They released a new photo, which actually shows a panned out version of this blue blanket. In the upper portion, you'll see David's leg, you'll see the brown sweater and the blue blanket. Now, as you can tell, the information that was written in the reports prior was not correct. This new photo shows different evidence, and you see that the knife is clearly nowhere even near his leg. Like the knife is over here, you have the blue blanket, which turns out to not be tucked under, and it's just covering It's actually laying over David by quite a ways, and his leg, you will see it was the blue up in the upper right-hand side. But did you notice something else that was never mentioned? The maxilla at the top of the screen. And you will notice that there's a fully intact maxilla. I'm not sure whose upper teeth these were. It might have been Kamel's. I don't know. I haven't really researched it enough, but you will see. Take a close look at that. Do you have any idea how hard it would be? You would have, it looks like it has been cut, sawed, whatever, but you will notice you don't see any jagged teeth marks. There are no dog teeth marks on that maxilla. How did the dog remove that maxilla from the rest of the skull? Everything I've been researching, and I've been looking high and low because I wanted to be better prepared with this new information, I can't find anything that shows where a dog can remove a maxilla like that from a human skull. You guys, just let me know what you think. Take a good look at that picture again, and you will see, again, the knife is nowhere. It's probably a good couple feet away from David. Again, it's still pointed in the wrong direction. The knife is still pointing up toward the head. It's lying on top of hair and fiber. The blanket itself is lying on top of what appears to be part of a skull. I don't know, but that's what it looks like. So that means that the bones or these skull pieces and this fiber and this hair had to have been there prior to the blanket being put down. And then what I'm working on next is with this FOIA also came another drawing. And this drawing shows a completely different position of Ranya's body compared to the photo that was released before. That means her body was moved. By who? I'm still working on that. I don't know. But the sketch and the way the sketch is done, lots of information on that one. We'll cover that later because that's going to go into some in-depth stuff. But it definitely shows that there's no way Paleo could have eaten at least one of her hands. So if he didn't eat one of them, chances are he didn't eat all of them. He didn't do this damage that they're saying he did. But again, here is the new information that contradicts the previous information that was in the report and the photos given. I'll put that photo up, both photos up again one more time for you to take a better look. And please let me know what you think. Hi everyone. Today we're going to be going over blood spatter that was found in the Crowley home, and I will be showing you quite a few pictures and then the edits I have done to help bring out either the blood spatter, the pattern, or images behind the pattern like the quote-unquote footprints. I figured out how they did it, and we will go over that. And it turns out that if you remember in another video, I said I thought that it looked like there was a bloody handprint on the floor. That's exactly what it was. And I will show you that photo as well with the edits so you can see that it actually is a handprint. And then the different stages of the blood drawing. You will see clotted blood, you will see skeletonized blood, and you will also see actual just blood spatter, which and all of those indicate separate events. That tells you and everybody that they were injured, hurt, beat, or whatever at different times. They didn't die right away. This wasn't just a simple gunshot to the head, as we know, and it wasn't also about the dog eating them. Somebody did this damage to them and they tortured them for a while, which is very, very sad. It's taken me so long to do this because every time I'd get to a new slide and I would see new proof, I just couldn't take it. Okay, sorry about the interruption. The first thing you will notice on the slides that you will see next, sorry about that, turning up the volume on the computer, you're going to see the mathematical equations that were done to figure out the angle, the degree of angle of where the blood spatter was coming from. And then the next slide after that, you will see a sample on slide where it shows the item number 19. And you will see a straight line of blood, and then you will see two other forms of blood, one which is skeletonized and one that is just a regular medium velocity blood spatter. They're both medium velocity, both the skeletonized and the other one. And then you'll see the arrow. Look at the arrow as it's going through the blood. It might be hard to see, but it'll be a thin black line with an arrow at the end. One of them is going this way, another is going this way. So we have on this particular photograph that they took, there are two directions of blood flow. And on a couple of the others, you will see 3, sometimes 4 different directions of blood flow. That means that whoever was bleeding was, and when you see the drop, and then what they call the tail, you'll see a big spot, and then it kind of tapers off. That's called the tail. That means that the person was going this direction. They were moving this way when the blood fell, and it went this way. And so when you see the tail coming this way, they were moving this way, the blood drops, and it goes this way. So you'll see on this one where you see the tail, the arrow going up like this, you know that whoever's blood was that, they were going in this direction trying to move. And then another point, they were going this way, trying to move this way as the blood then drops this way. It gets a little confusing, but look at that blood and it will tell you so much information. They were hit multiple times. This is not a David snapping and just shooting Kamel in the head and shooting Rania in the head and then shooting himself. And then that's just a convenient little simple cleanup. That's not what happened. They were, like I said before, systematically beaten and during over an extended period of time. In the second picture you will see where you'll have like the little diagram with explaining things. In that particular one alone are 2 separate events. At least 2, maybe 3. Hi YouTube, it's Catherine Michelle. Today we're going to talk about the dog feces that was found on scene. And I'm going to read to you just the little snippets that where the officers mention the dog feces. And it'll be each one of these little pink flags. I'm not going to show you every page, but I'm just going to read to you what they said. And this, and on some of these reports, I know who wrote them. In the handwritten notes, I'm not sure whose handwritten notes they are. I can probably try to guess when I compare them, but since it doesn't have a name, I won't say for sure. Okay, this one states, the first one says, dog poop all over the place. The next one says, dog feces throughout home. The next one says, dog feces all over. The next one says, I immediately noticed that there was a great deal of what appeared to be dog feces on the floor and throughout the residence. And that report was by, I can actually tell you who wrote that one. That one was by Brian Bone. He's the one who stated that there appeared to be dog feces throughout the home. This report is by Tommy Booth, and they state, once inside, you immediately noticed dog feces all over the floors. The next report, which is by Greg Dahlstrom, states, I noticed dog feces all over the floor. And the last report by Adam Keeler states, there were piles of dog feces all over the floor and on both levels of the residence. Now, according to these reports, you're left with the impression that there was dog feces everywhere, that it was just a lot of it. Now, I'm going to show you the actual photos that they took, and you will see the big piles and the all over the floor dog feces, which doesn't exist. It's really not that much. And they photographed, from what I can tell, almost every area of the floor in the house, almost, not all of them. But you get enough of the angles that you can see. Now, the areas where there is the majority that they see is by the back door, the glass sliding door that was ajar, and then downstairs, like right at the base of the stairs. And then other than that, it's like one here or one there, and then that's it. And as you can see, now I've had dogs, my kids have had dogs forever. I mean, I don't have one now, but we've had so many dogs. And if I had left my dogs locked up in my house they're saying they hadn't been seen for almost 3 weeks, but when I counted the days, it was close to 30 days. That was the last time that there was a correspondence or someone spoke with David or David sent something out until the 17th of January. So almost an entire month that this dog was supposedly in this house, even at 3 weeks. They keep saying a 3-week time frame from the last time anyone heard from him. And when you count back to, December 17th or 19th, which was David's last communication, I think. I'll have to go back and check the video I did before. But anyway, up until the 17th, that's a lot of days. But anyway, look at these pictures and let me know what you think. I don't think this is not even 2 weeks worth of dog poo, let alone 3. But yeah, let me know. Hi YouTube, it's Catherine Michelle. I've been thinking lately about the BCA report number 4, report on the examination of physical evidence. That's this one right here. And this is in regards to the blood that was found on the magazine. Sometimes it takes me a bit to sit there and really think about what they've given us. Now, what I was thinking is, if David, because it's David's blood, it's not David's fingerprint, and I'll try to find the pictures and put that up there of the magazine showing the drop of blood on the magazine that was loaded inside the gun that they say was the gun that David used. There is no way for that blood to get there from David shooting himself, if you're going along with their theory. The blood had to have been dropped on the magazine prior to that magazine being put in and loaded into the gun itself. That means David was bleeding prior to the gun being loaded and then being used to shoot everybody, if it even was his gun that did the shooting. But still, the police never stopped to think about that. The ME didn't stop to question that, and that's a huge red flag. Where did David's blood come from to drip onto the magazine prior to the shooting deaths of Kamel and Rania? And then he shoots himself, supposedly. That piece of evidence right there proves that there was David was injured. And whoever loaded that magazine was the one who was near David when he was injured. And they were the one that somehow transferred that blood. Was it from David's hand? Did they give him a bloody nose? I don't know. We don't know. This is pure speculation. However, according to the official police and their report and how this whole thing went down, that drop of blood should not be on that magazine. But yet, there it is. As plain as day. His blood, not his fingerprint. So somehow David's blood was dropped on the magazine. Somebody else picked that up, loaded that magazine in the gun, and it wasn't David, because it's not his print. And then the gun was used to shoot everybody with. And I've been spending the last several days thinking about that, going, how come the police never explain that? And they don't. They completely go over it. They bypass that entire piece of evidence. And again, it's like every time we're reading something, there is more and more and more information that shows it is impossible for David to be guilty of this crime. And it states that there are 2 or more individual blood on this. And I know some people are going, I've heard it said before, and I don't know who said it, but we're stating that obviously we don't understand blood profiling and DNA and blah, 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 because it's quite often that they'll find and they word it as 2 or more contributors. And that may be true. However, when BCA differentiates and states that they are looking for 2 or more individuals, then it doesn't become just an anomaly in a blood exam. It means that's what they were looking for and it's what they found. And how do we know that? Because in these reports, in report number 4, which you would be able to find on the group page, and I'm sure these reports are everywhere, absolutely everywhere. So they're easy to find. But it's BCA report number 4, report on the examination of physical evidence, nuclear DNA, 3/16/2015. And it states here that mixture of 2 or more, major profile, so the main blood contributor was David. Major profile does not match Kamel or Rania, but it says the Kamel and Rania can't be excluded. So that means that they could be minor contributors. So they were looking for minor as well as major contributors. So when they're stating 2 or more, there was actually another mixture. There's somebody else's DNA that's a part of this entire crime scene that was never looked into. But anyway, I will definitely try to find those photos and make that a part of this video as well. But I thought you'd find that interesting. Okay, I want to preface this video by saying there are going to be 2 photos used in this video that depict an actual crime scene. So if you are under the age of 18 or are squeamish, turn off the video now. Hi YouTube, it's Catherine Michelle. You will remember in a couple of my previous videos I talked about the blue blanket, and I talked about how Hi YouTube, it's Catherine Michelle. I'm back briefly. I'm going to do a quick video today. I have not given up on the case, and I'm not done by any means or any stretch of the imagination. I'm still researching it, but dealing with some personal health issues and also issues with the laptop. Yay, right? Gotta love laptop issues. I'm not supposed to be using it right now. It tends to overheat and ugly things start to happen. So I'm going to make this quick. But the laptop should be fixed within a week, so yay. But I'm researching, in the meantime, I'm researching things like the affidavits and what they've requested, and then what did the information show that they found, especially the parts that I'm interested in. As we know, there were affidavits requesting cell phone information and all of the laptop information and all of his notes, David's notes and everything, because they were trying to show a motive. And yet, okay, that's what they're stating in their affidavit, but then later their detective Clonico states, after he reviews everything, that there was no motive. So we have the police, Apple Valley Police Department, blaming David and listing him as a spouse abuser and a domestic violence person and all of this stuff based on no motive, zero motive. And I'm trying to figure out, why did they do this? I don't even think they know. But anyway, that's what I'm looking for, and that's what I'm searching on at this point. So be patient. But in the meantime, and I know this has been out there with others, but I'm going to read an email that David had sent to Jason Allen. This was written on December 17th, 2014, a month before their bodies were discovered, a little less than a month. They were discovered on January 17th. But for the police department and all of those others out there who want to say that David snapped, you know who you are. You didn't do your job in researching this very well. And for everyone else, I want you to hear David's words, hear what he says, and then decide for yourself if this sounds like a man who snapped or a man who just decided he didn't have anything to live for. Here we go. Written on December 17th, 2014, David Crowley's own words to Jason Allen. Hello, Jason. I hope you've been well. I can't imagine much keeping you down. I'm pretty excited to be reaching out to you, I gotta say. As big and important as Gray State seems to be to everyone, I'll tell you the truth. After all the attention in 2012 and subsequent invisible development and networking, it's almost completely abandoned. Not by me, of course, but by the previous standing core team. Maybe the workload got too crazy. I don't know the personal reasons, but at the end of it all, here I am at the end of the tunnel all alone. I want to stop here because this is where a lot of people take this completely out of context, and they're like saying, oh, see, he felt despondent. He's not despondent here. He's saying that everybody who is working with him. Hi, everyone. I'm going to do just a quick, well, okay, with me, nothing's ever quick, sorry, because obviously I tend to rattle on. However, I was thinking about the Crowley case again, and as always, and wondering if the Apple Valley Police Department truly were incapable of investigating. Were they the Keystone Cops that they appeared to be? Or was it something totally different? And that something being, did they lack investigative experience? So while I was sitting up the other night being extremely frustrated at how they refused to admit they're wrong or see what they did wrong, something kind of, that thought went into the back of my head. Well, maybe they don't have that much experience. And I ran across an article by Nick Ferraro, and he's a writer for the Twin Cities Pioneer Press. And this particular article is called "No Evidence of Struggle in Apple Valley Murder-Suicide Police Say." It was written in January 2015 and updated in October of the same year. Now, this states that, and I'm going to be reading bits and pieces from this article. It says, investigators working the murder-suicide of aspiring filmmaker David Crowley and his wife and their 5-year-old daughter said Friday that there were no physical signs of struggle. The revelations were among the new information that the Apple Valley Police released Friday in the deaths of David, Camille, and their daughter Rania. The Hennepin County Medical Examiner's Office has ruled that the deaths of Camille and Rania were homicides, and David was suicide. Each died of a single gunshot wound to the head. Okay, everybody knows the autopsy reports clearly state Kamel had 2 gunshot wounds to her head. Now, here's the part that's frustrating to me, and this, I am very frustrated with the medical examiner. And yes, I get emails from people and comments going, you shouldn't say anything bad about him because they're never going to open it if you keep slamming him. Well, you know what? When they screw up this badly, or when it's so blatant, I'm not going to keep my mouth shut. And here we go. The medical examiner's office did not find additional marks or injuries on the bodies that point to a physical struggle before their deaths. And this is what Captain John Bermel had said, and this is what they were going on, because the medical examiner didn't find other injuries on the body parts that were remaining. Therefore, it had to have been murder-suicide because there's no signs of injury. And they say the house was intact, and yes, I'm being snarky, and yes, I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't be that way. Then Bermel goes on to say, if there was a scuffle, you'd expect to find maybe something broken or something knocked over. And when I read this, that is when it really stuck in my craw. And I'm like, okay, either they are completely incompetent or they have no experience. And here's why. The medical examiner says, of course, they put it out there and they make people believe that this was a murder-suicide because they couldn't find other injuries to the bodies. Forget the fact that their heads are missing. You have 3 hands missing, one of David's, 2, both of Kamel's, and you have Ranya's arm. They blame this on a dog, which expert after expert after expert I've spoken with regarding dog and animal scavenging, especially dogs, they all state emphatically, without a doubt, animals eat and they have a particular way that they scavenge. And a small dog like Paleo is not going to, the first thing they're not going to do is go straight to a head and just mow that down. And then, and especially with adults. And when you have a younger child and you have abdomens exposed, and none of those were touched, nothing was touched. But the dog probably did eat. From one of the experts I spoke with, they said the dog, actually 2, because Dr. Kelly also said roughly something similar, although he was interjecting this in a different thought he had, but another expert I spoke with said that the dog probably inadvertently started eating or did eat some of the bodies because he was licking them. They were injured and he's like trying to help them. But as far as eating these body parts, no. And so for a medical examiner to say that because they didn't see any other evidence, then therefore it must be murder-suicide, it's inept and it's misleading, because that medical examiner does not have the heads to examine, does not have the hands to examine, does not have the arm to examine. You have a little girl with a broken rib. Well, there's another injury. Where did that come from? They're not mentioning that. And there's evidence of blunt force trauma to Kamel. Now, it would be easy, and what it appears the evidence is showing is she was beaten about the head and the face. Her hands are missing, so was that because she was protecting her head? Was that because they wanted her hands out of the way? That speculation, we don't know. But we do know there's damage. And it was not due to the gunshot wounds. So many people have said, but their heads are missing, so the guns did it. The heads are missing where the entrance wounds happened, not the exit wounds. There's no blowout from where the exit happened. The exit wounds on all of them are clearly delineated. You can see them, and especially in especially with Rodney, that's the one that they have is the entrance and the exit on her. So there is proof that there was physical damage. There is proof that there was a physical attack. There's proof by the blood spatter. There's proof by the cast off. There's proof by blood on the knife. So the medical examiner was remiss in stating this, completely wrong. And then I'm like going, okay. And several people have made this comment. And when I very first did my one of my first videos, and then I had stated that it was Ranya's left arm, I think, that was missing, because that is what is written in the report. And then it was Greg that came up and said, no, it was her right. So I went back and I looked at the photo, and I'm like, yeah, it is her right. And then that's when I remembered. And then someone else just made a comment about the position of the gun and the case of and the gun safe case and all this other stuff. And they were like going, and what has always puzzled myself as well as everybody else is, why is the gun a few inches from the left arm that's stretched straight out? So, I mean, imagine you're shooting yourself here. A gun is heavy. It's metal. It's dropping. It's going to be going down. It is not going to go down and shoot up probably 5 to 6 feet and land miraculously just inches from his left hand. That happens to miraculously just land on an open Quran. It was placed there. And here's the mistake that so many people make. And this was one of the first things we had to learn when I was in EMT school, is our right is the patient's left. And that's the mistake that not only the police officers made, but the person who placed that gun. When they placed that gun on the floor, because most people automatically, it's my right, so if there's somebody laying there, it's a mental thing. It's something your brain automatically does. And then they place that gun on the left-hand side when they're thinking it's his right. So to them, that made sense. So put the gun there because it's by his right hand. It was a mistake. They didn't think it through, and they failed to realize their right was David's left. And so that's huge. And the police obviously didn't know that either. The medical examiner should have figured that out if they showed up. So if they were there for 45 minutes on scene, only 11 and a half hours later after they got the call. And as far as Captain Burmell stating that there would have been evidence of a scuffle and stuff broken. Again, wrong. Why? Because if they were ambushed, and now keep in mind, the back door was open. It was ajar. Easy entrance and exit for anybody to come in and out of that home. And if you catch somebody as they're coming in, this is speculation. Right here, speculating. Now, if you catch somebody who's just happened to be coming in from their house, from going to a store, going out and about or whatever, they come in and they catch you by surprise. If your wife and daughter are walking through a door and then all of a sudden you're standing there with two of your friends or cohorts or buddies or whoever this is, or somebody you met, acquaintance, that's what I was trying to think of. And then you see 3 people there, 2 of which who now have a gun to your family's heads. People are saying David would fight. And that was my first thought, was why didn't he fight? And then I'm like, well, he wouldn't in that situation. When he sees people who have his wife and daughter, he's going to do everything they ask of him. He would hand over anything to them to keep them safe. There would be no struggle. There would be nothing broken, nothing moved, none of that. So because they're basing their decision, because nothing was moved, broken, or a sign of a scuffle, and because they say that there isn't evidence of other injuries to the body, which is a lie, because Rania has a fractured rib underneath her armpit on the same arm that is missing. That again is misleading, because there were enough bones left that they should have called in a forensic pathologist or a forensic anthropologist. That's probably more correct. And had them put that skull back together to determine what happened to their heads. But they didn't do that. So it's misleading, it's wrong, and spoken without investigating. So again, then I got upset again. I'm reading this article and I'm like, okay, Captain Bermel goes on to state that he has 30 years of experience of being a cop. I have 30 years experience as a cop, and what I found is that any one of these three things alone typically isn't going to explain some of the acts like this. Now, that's taken out of context. You have to understand he's talking about other things in the article, but what I'm referring to is he's stating he has 30 years of experience. Now, was that strictly with Apple Valley? I don't know. He didn't state, so it doesn't say here. And then I'm like going, okay, if you have 30 years of experience, why couldn't you figure this out? And then again, the thought came in, okay, now I'm being judgmental. Now I'm letting my anger and my frustration come out. And so I'm like, okay, well, let me pull up the crime rates for Apple Valley, Minnesota. You Google it, and I'll have those graphs at the end of the video. So I Googled that, and I pulled up the population, and I pulled up the crime rates. The population in 2014 was 50,000, just 200 and some odd people. And they base their crime rates on per 100,000. So on the graph, you'll see a top number and then another number in parentheses. And then you see over to this on the main column over here where they're listing murders, rapes, burglaries, and then underneath per 100,000. So the top number in these columns will be the actual number, and the number in parentheses would be what they were if it was per 100,000. I don't know why they do graphs like that. It's stupid. But anyway, they do. So you look at this, and from the years 2002 to 2014, there were only 7 homicides that the Apple Valley Police Department had to contend with. 7. That's not enough. It doesn't give you experience. It doesn't give you knowledge. It gives you nothing. That's like a beginner. And so then instead of being angry at them for being incompetent, then I'm like, well, wait a second. They're lacking experience in investigating murders. And the people who committed these murders are professionals. So you have professional killers, at least one. One of them was definitely pro, hired by somebody, a handler, the government, somebody else. I don't know that, but I know one is a professional and the other one or two were, I would call them the Keystone Cops. They fumbled and screwed up so much in this, it's not funny. So you have professional hit people, and you've got them. They manipulate, they talk, they maneuver, and they misdirect, and they were very good at what they did against a group of police officers who only had 7 murders under their belt. That's not a fair competition. You've got somebody who does this and gets paid a lot as a living, killing people, setting stages, making it look like something it's not, against a group of officers who are probably very good-hearted. And that's the bad thing. They're good-hearted people who have a good soul, and they're easily manipulated because they're not looking out for that professional. And yet they were taken advantage of as police officers. And they need to see that, and they need to realize, because the evidence they have given proves beyond a shadow of a doubt, no doubt whatsoever, David is innocent. Probably not the last time, but only time I'm going to mention it right now. What sealed that for me was the bullet that killed David. It's missing. Was never recovered at the scene. So that tells me he was killed somewhere else and he was brought back. Why do I say that? The bullet that they claim killed David was found a month later by someone who shouldn't have been in the house. And this is by an entrance wound from a bullet into the ceiling by the front door, which in the scenario that they give you, David is standing. His left side of his head is facing the window. The exit wound, which they clearly see and describe in the autopsy report, exited from behind his left ear. Exited. The hole's still there. The left side of his head is not gone. It's there. So they see that. And that means that the blood spatter should have been on the window and on the curtain, out of reach of the dog. There's no way the dog could have gotten up there to lick it off and clean up that aspect of the scene. Not possible. So, we're missing high velocity blood spatter from a gunshot wound. You've got a bullet that they find a month later by someone who lied about being in the house with a family member. This family member denied it, said no. So what is that person doing in the house? A, to begin with. B, it has no tissue of David's whatsoever. There's no blood on it. The only thing it had was nuclear DNA. And if you don't know what nuclear DNA is, real quick, and we know it was David's gun. And so he loads the magazine. Anybody who has a gun and you load your magazine with your bullets, it has your nuclear DNA. That is all they found. They found no prints. And David's prints are not on the gun. His blood is on the gun. But they found prints with his blood on the magazine, but the prints don't match him. They have blood from somebody else at the scene that matches none of them. But back to this magical bullet that was found a month later by someone who's not supposed to be there. Okay, so to recap, he's facing no high velocity gun blood spatter, none. This bullet, which he's now facing this way, and the hole is going to be up here in the ceiling. He supposedly shoots himself like this. They try to say this way, but explain to me how he shoots himself this way. It exits out the left ear. And regardless, it's going to have to make a miraculous 180 turn around his body, up and into the ceiling. Okay, everybody knows. Everybody knows that doesn't happen. That is impossible. And now you have a gun that if he shot himself, I mean, what was he doing? Standing there like this? Okay, I'm going to kill myself now. And I know I'm making fun of this because it's so ludicrous and I have to stop getting angry. So he supposedly shoots himself in the head, or he shoots himself like this, and this bullet magically goes this way, and this gun, which is now on this side, ends up a heavy gun. Instead of landing, plopping, which they do, find something heavy like a gun and drop it on the floor and see where it lands. You will find it's not going to end up 3 to 4 feet to the left of you and conveniently to the left side of your hand, which the person then who is facing him planting this, their right. They forgot to remember that their right is their victim's left. So when they placed it, they're thinking, oh, this is David's right hand. Their right hand, they're putting it down. Big mistake. So all of these things all together, and more. The list grows by the day to show everything that disproves David being guilty of murder. And so, but the main point being, these police officers only had 7 murders in the 13 years prior to these other 2 murders, or 3. David was murdered, Kamel and Rania. All 3 were murdered, but they don't list David as a murder. They list him as another statistic. So you have, and so now I'm trying to look at it instead of them being arrogant screwballs. I now see them as being manipulated and used by these perpetrators. And they didn't have the knowledge and the background to fully understand how to investigate this. Yes, you get trained. Yes, I'm sure they were given any type of field like that. You're sent to some type of school to learn something. But what you learn in school is far different than what you see in the real world. For example, in the EMT training I took, we had to do everything by the book to pass the class. When I took my national registry, by the book, everything to, how much oxygen you give somebody per liter for each injury and all this other stuff. And, how CPR, we all know CPR. But once I got out there and the very first time I went to work, the first thing the paramedic said to me is, everything you learned in school, throw it out the window. Now, it was good. It was a good basis, because then I knew. He said, because what you're going to see and how we're going to have to treat this is going to be far different than what you've been taught. And that's true for just about every other job out there. And it's especially true for the police as well, trying to investigate a homicide. I'm sure they were taught that, well, if you have a husband and a wife and a child and the wife, and it appears that they were killed. So I'm going to assume here that they were following what the book told them is probably what happened. So they looked for evidence that fit that, and then they were speaking with somebody and others who were twisting what was going on and manipulating the conversation and directing it toward David and away from them. So they have all that. So that doesn't make the Apple Valley Police Department bumbling idiots. It makes them somebody's, they were a puppet. And it's not right. Those people who did this used them to complete their agenda. So keep that in mind, and I'm going to try to keep that in mind from here on out, instead of getting upset at them for what they didn't do, but try to understand that they didn't know how to do it. And they, and again, it had to have been extremely overwhelming just to walk in and see that scene. So look at the graphs at the end and keep in mind they only had 7 murders in which they investigated prior to the murder of the Crowley family. So their investigative experience was nil. It was none. 7 is nothing. It's nothing. I saw more deaths than that when I was working as an EMT. A lot more. I can't tell you how many I've seen. So my experience outweighs their experience, which is sad because I know paramedics and nurses and obviously doctors, we know doctors, but paramedics and nurses, and their experience makes mine look like I'm a little peon. So especially that. So when I'm talking to these people who have been in their field, who deal directly with death and investigation, and there are multiple thousands and thousands and thousands of cases that they deal with, and then I look at the reports written by these police officers who only dealt with 7, I'm going with the people who have the experience. And I'm going to take their interpretation of what has happened over the ones who actually wrote the reports. And the ones, they did a good job writing the reports. I'll tell you that much, because they gave us a whole lot of information that I don't think they realized they were giving us. And everything they provided goes against what their final narrative was. But again, that's because they were lacking experience. So, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not doing this to try to get everybody to start talking badly about the Apple Valley Police Department. That is not the goal here. I just want you all to understand the possibility of why they got their final conclusion wrong. And it's just because they didn't know better. They did what they thought was right and what they were following their book and their protocol, but they didn't understand that oftentimes what you see is not what is. Okay, hello everyone. I just wanted to give you an update regarding the research we've been doing in the David Crowley case. In the past, I've spoken with several professionals who've offered their opinion based on some of the evidence that they have received. Now, not all of the professionals had all of the evidence, but yet still, they provided us with a lot of help, and they explained a lot of stuff that we didn't understand. And what they have explained has been immeasurable to helping us understand some of the evidence. There's a phrase called going down the rabbit hole. And unfortunately, the rabbit hole in this case has had many twists and turns. Guess I should have been a little bit I should have been ready for the slippery slope. However, it has proven to be extremely daunting. I love a challenge, though. It may be a few weeks, though, before another video is done. And several others, as you know, Dan and Greg. But for myself and my research, there's still some stuff that's going to take time to finish getting it together. But we are all working tirelessly to get you guys more information and get professionals from other aspects of this case. There's so many things, and it takes a lot of time to get this together. I would like to state, though, that when I first started all of this, and what helped me to keep everything together was I created a list. As you guys will often see behind me sometimes is my list. And I have different sections for persons of interest, and then la 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 la. But my list of persons of interest has included a whole bunch of names. And these are names of people that I either wanted to talk to or who have contacted me, or somehow it has fit in with the case. And so I keep that list so I keep everything straight. And then as I go through my research, if I still need further information or if I think people have more to offer, they maintain and will stay on my persons of interest, where the others then they just, either they fulfilled their purpose or I found that what they had to offer, not to say it wasn't good information, but it didn't fit in the areas that I was exploring and researching. So they may help other people, but what they had to share wasn't helpful to me, so I removed their names. And my list has gone from really long to it's getting shorter, which is good because eventually I want no names on that list. Again, the people on the list when you guys see these names and see these lists, this is not to state someone is guilty. It's not to say that they had any part to do with it. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but that is not for me to judge. I am looking at evidence only, and I'm looking to see who can provide evidence and who fits in what particular category. And that's it. And it has been a real useful tool in research for me. So I'm really glad I saw that. In fact, I'd spoken with a police officer, and they had actually suggested that's why I do something like this, to kind of keep all of my thoughts in order. At the beginning of the videos, I didn't have my paperwork, but now I do. And again, they were right. It was very, very, very helpful. So again, I just want to say thank you all for your support, and don't give up on us because we haven't given up on the case. Have a great day. Hi everyone. This video is going to be addressed to everyone who seems to feel that they have a right to cuss out me or anybody else. Can't do anything about what you do to anybody else. But listen, you little flippin', scary, pansy wussies. I'm going to keep it clean because your language is absolutely beyond disgusting. Where are your mothers? Did they honestly teach you to treat women like this? You think you're cool? You think you're bad? You think I'm going to be scared because you call me these names and you threaten me with an alias in an email? I don't get scared that way. You don't scare me. You can't flipping scare me. You got something to say, use your name, or you come see me. Obviously, you know where I am if you have my email address. Come do it to my face. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you think you are. I'm tired of it. Clean up your language. If you talk to me like a decent human being, I will be glad to have a conversation with you. But honestly, how immature and stupid can you be? I'm not taking anything down. I have not slandered anybody. I have not accused people. Have I said people are people of interest? And if you're one of those, and if that's who this is, then that is your fault because of what you have left in the evidence. Now, making you a person of interest is not saying you did this, but I find it awfully disturbing. Every single one of David's friends, you do nothing but call that man the F word. You call his wife the F word. You even refer to the daughter as crazy and an emotional wreck. And you guys are his friends? Really? have no words for you. No words for you at all. You know what? Save it. Either tell me who you are and you be upfront about it, or just shut up. Hi everyone. Today we're going to be going over blood spatter that was found in the Crowley home. And I will be showing you quite a few pictures and then the edits I have done to help bring out either the blood spatter, the pattern, or, images behind the pattern, like the quote-unquote footprints. I figured out how they did it, and we will go over that. And it turns out that, if you remember in another video, I said I thought that it looked like there was a bloody handprint on the floor. That's exactly what it was, and I will show you that photo as well with the edits so you can see that it actually is a handprint. And then the different stages of the blood drying. You will see clotted blood, you will see skeletonized blood, and you will also see actual just blood spatter, which in all of those indicate separate events. That tells you and everybody that they were injured, hurt, beat, or whatever at different times. They didn't die right away. This wasn't just a simple gunshot to the head, as we know. And it wasn't also about the dog eating them. Somebody did this damage to them and they tortured them for a while, which is very, very sad. It's taken me so long to do this because every time I'd get to a new slide and I would see new proof, I just couldn't take it. Okay, sorry about the interruption. The first thing you will notice on the slides that you will see next, sorry about that, turning up the volume on the computer, you're going to see the mathematical equations that were done to figure out the angle, the degree of angle of where the blood spatter was coming from. And then the next slide after that, you will see a sample on slide where it shows the item number 19. And you will see a straight line of blood. And then you will see two other forms of blood, one which is skeletonized and one that is just a regular medium velocity blood spatter. They're both medium velocity, both the skeletonized and the other one. And then you'll see the arrow. Look at the arrow as it's going through the blood. It might be hard to see, but it'll be a thin black line with an arrow at the end. Hi YouTube, it's Catherine Michelle. Today we're going to go over the BCA lab report on the latent prints. As you can see, this is the one that was taken from the notepad, and they went ahead and, I guess, took samples or copied pages from every single page left in the notebook. They don't state how many pages were originally in there. You know how most notebooks will say 80 pages, and so don't know. Not sure where the writing occurred within the notepad. Again, and where did it fall? However, we're going to go over the lab's results of these latent prints. And I'm also going to be referencing laboratory number S15-00662, report number 2, page 7 of 11, if you would like to go look that one up. And that is also, I believe, the BCA report. Yes, that would also be from the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. Okay, so this one is a little confusing for me because I don't have a lot of experience or much information or whatever relating to latent prints. So this took some going over again and again for me, rereading, going back and forth, and cross-referencing what they were talking about. And I'm not going to say with 100% certainty I still understand it all. But we will start with, we're going to start with here, and then we'll go back and reference where they're picking up at the beginning. It says, an examination of items 1A and 1B reveal 3 latent prints that are suitable for comparison. Now, 1A and 1B, when you look at the report, that will be the pistol and then the magazine. And right now that's what they're talking about. And they're saying that they have samples that are suitable for comparison. The latent prints were recovered from the following items. 1A, one latent palm print designated as LP1A-1. Item 1B, one latent fingerprint designated as LP1B-2. And then it says item 54. And when you look at item 54 in their report, it simply states that item 54 is a CD disk that contains multiple images. Now they do not state which image they're referencing in here. They just simply say one latent palm print designated as LP54-1. So I'm going to assume that off that disk, item number 54, they found one that they found was suitable, but again, they're not telling us which image or anything like that. The next is a limited examination of latent prints in apparent blood from items 41, 41A, and 41A-1 through 41A-59, all originally submitted as item 41, revealed 2 latent prints that are suitable for comparison. Specifically, the latent prints recovered from the following items. Item 41A-30, one latent impression, could be from a finger or palm, designated as LP41A-30-1. In item 41A-31, one latent fingerprint designated as LP41A-31-1. And I will show you from their report that is referencing the pages from 2 single pages from the report. There we go. Now it says LP1B-2 and LP54-1, and that would be, let me get that for you, B-2 and 54-1. That's a palm print and a fingerprint. The fingerprint is from the magazine, and the palm print, I'm not sure if they really state where those prints come. Again, it just says a disk containing 25 NEF images. But that's all we know, or that's all I've found so far. Now, those 2 prints were searched in the Midwest Automated Fingerprint Identification Network database, and no suitable candidate was generated. So I found that interesting. They have 2 prints that they can't associate with anybody in the house. And they seem, not they, the lab. Now the lab, from what I can tell in every report I've been reading from the lab themselves, is they have been pretty thorough. When I refer to they, I mean, it seems as though, to me, the police have not and did not follow up on a lot of this information. To me, this should have been like, you know, a huge red flag. You've got prints that don't show up in a database, and they have the fingerprints available from the victims inside. So obviously, they don't match them, and then they're not in a database. You know, you figure it out, and I think you can. And then we go on to latent prints. LP1B-2, which is, again, that's from the fingerprint from the magazine. Now, mind you, right above that, it states that they were searched in their network and nothing was found. And up above, it says that they have, everything states that these prints that they're talking about in this report are suitable for comparison, and that they revealed 3 latent prints suitable for comparison. Now we jump back down further under latent reports, and it says LP1B-2 inconclusive to Crowley due to limited quality and quantity of information in the latent print. Now, if they have limited information, how does that make it suitable for comparison? And this is where I got really confused, because they did this with LP41A30-1. So let's do that again. LP41A30-1. inconclusive to Crowley due to the limited quality and quantity of the information in the latent known print. And that one is the latent print from the page in the notebook. Now, when I'm reading, this is where I'm going to reference the other report number 2. It says the magazine from item 1, also with apparent blood on it, included apparent ridge detail. So they can see ridge detail. It was observed to be, the magazine was observed to be in the pistol and loaded with less than 4 cartridges. A cartridge was also observed in the chamber. So, in their report, the fingerprint in blood on the magazine, they could see ridge detail. On here, at the beginning, it says that that item revealed latent prints that were suitable for comparison, but then when they go down to compare them to David, now it says inconclusive to Crowley due to limited quality and quantity of information. They have 2 areas where they say the quality and quantity is there, and now they're saying it's not there. The one known print that was identified to David was LP41A 31-1, identified to the left middle finger of Crowley. And that one was a fingerprint from the page in the notebook. Again, same thing, different page. You had page 30 and page 31. This was from page 31. And then it says, no known palm prints for David Timothy Crowley were submitted or found in the BCA files for comparison to LP1A-1 and LP54-1. Okay, and what do I find interesting about that? Well, if they could identify the left middle finger of David Crowley, we know his right hand is missing. We know his left hand was mummified. Now, rehydrating a mummified hand, tongue-tied here today, it is done with relative, with a lot of success. We'll put it that way. They can do it with a lot of success. When you have a mummified hand, they can rehydrate it and then get those prints, either fingerprints or palm prints, whatever is left. And so they must have done that for the finger. And then I think they did have a fingerprint card too. Maybe that's what they had. Yes, okay, they did have that, so maybe they just used the fingerprint card. And which is item number 49. And that says known fingerprint card from David Timothy Crowley. Now, but they say they have no known palm prints, so if they needed palm prints, and the Emmy had the body, why didn't they rehydrate the hand and then get that print for the lab? I mean, obviously they couldn't do the right hand, but why not the left? You know, and that's something that I still can't find an answer to. That just doesn't make much sense. Again, a lot of stuff in this case doesn't make sense. So, on this one, there was something else I wanted to point out. Okay, so report number 2 states they have ridge detail, and it was observed, the magazine had observed detail in blood, ridge detail in blood, which was in the magazine. They took that out. Here it states that the items were suitable for comparison, and then they say down below, oops, we can't compare them because the quality is not good. And then we go back to lab report number 4, and that was the one where we did with the blood, and that was the smoking gun video I did where I showed you that according to those reports that the bullet that killed David was never recovered, and they certainly didn't test it and it wasn't found. So on that report as well, go back and review this one. This is going to be page 4 of 5. And we're going over the blood from the notepad. And on that, and I'm going to revisit this one more time because it says mixture of 2 or more individuals. This is from item 41-2 and 41-2. Again, notepad with handwriting on the desk with the parent blood. So that's referring to the same notepad right here. And it states, mixture of 2 or more individuals. That's what the blood was. The major DNA profile indicated as female matches Kamal. Major profile does not match David, Timothy, or Rania. Major profile would not be expected to occur more than once among unrelated individuals in the world. Okay, so they have some major profiles. We know that they have Kamal, and then they go on to state that the other major profiles, you wouldn't expect that to occur more than once in an unrelated person in the world population. So that kind of narrows down the field. And I'm not saying who this other individual, related individual was to Kamal, but according to this report, I'm reading as it states. However, who they do rule out is David and Rania are excluded from being contributors to the mixture. So you have a mixture. 2 more individuals. It definitely matches Kamal. And they rule out the vast majority of the population. And then they said, in other words, it's more than likely someone who is related to her. And it says major profile would not be expected to occur more than once among unrelated individuals in the world population. This is why there are so many questions in this case. We have that, the blood on the notepad that we're discussing, where they state in 2 separate reports where they have the actual ridge detail, which are good, and they can compare them. And then later on, when they're trying to compare them and they can't match it to David, so then they put it as inconclusive due to limited quality and quantity of information in the latent print. What is it? Is it suitable or is it not suitable? So if the end result is not matching David, and that's not what, and this is, I'm interjecting here. This is not, God's word. I'm interjecting. My thought process is, if they have the print, they have ridge detail, it's suitable, and it's inconclusive to David, and you have David's print card, then it can't be David's. Because you have his print card, you have information, it doesn't match. Why say inconclusive due to lack of quantity and quality when you've previously clearly stated the quantity and quality were good? It's got to be one or the other. Now, and then the other 2, the LP1B2- I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. LP1B-2 and LP54-1, when they searched their database and no suitable candidate was found, and you have David Crowley's fingerprint card, and obviously his aren't matching that either, why did not the police get these reports and say, okay, we have blood from people who aren't in that house. We have fingerprints and latent prints from people who are not in that house. We better do a little bit more digging. But instead, they just said David did it. Again, more questions than answers.
Hello, my name is Dan Hennon. Today's March 23rd, 2016, and I'll be doing a live update here with the latest on the David Crowley family murder case. We'll be joined here shortly by Greg Fernandez Jr., who will be calling in on the line here as well. Today, the latest update from the City Pages came out. Front page article on the David Crowley case entitled "The Final Cut: The Strange and Tragic Demise of a Minnesota Filmmaker and His Family." And that just hit it'll hit the newsstands here tomorrow. It's on the internet here today, getting a lot of hits. The author of the article is Corey Zarowski, and I think he did a very balanced and fair look at this case. Somewhat still leading the way that I interpreted this article was more of David Crowley having delusions of grandeur, breaking with reality, not living in a reality state. getting up in over his head, and the article's basically written that he's just kind of lost touch and went off the deep end. So the article isn't at the same time agreeing with the official narrative from the investigation, but it's kind of leading down that path. It's getting it has some quotes with a family, friends, neighbors, and others following the case. So it's pretty balanced as far as that's concerned. I'm going to go to three topics, points of information here on this case that weren't included in the article. Corey Zarowski's article, I think, missed a whole host of things that he could have covered, but he also covered a lot of good things as well. Now, in the parameters of what would have or what could have fit in the story, there's a mountain of information out there. So I think he had to write this article probably in the parameters of a certain word count or column length space or something to that effect. But nothing about the deleted posts on Facebook were brought up in this article, and I think that's an important piece to bring up. The posts that were deleted off of David Crowley's personal Facebook page, not brought up in the article. I think that's a very important point, as once someone dies on Facebook, for instance, they are given three options from Facebook. A family member can call and have their page of the deceased turned into a tribute page. And what that will do is basically people can send their condolences and leave information out there as far as sharing good stories and times they've had with the person. The other option is they can shut it down and delete it altogether. So what you get with that case is the page shut down and gone and actually removed. And I think the last option that there is to keep it going just the way it was, wide open. And what that will do is Facebook freezes or locks in the time of that request, and people can only post things going forward. Stories, articles, pictures, updates, whatever they want to post to the wall is basically, it's a wide open wall, not a tribute page for that person, but it's locked as far as older things cannot be updated, edited, or deleted. Now, in David Crowley's case, he had posts from his personal page deleted after his death. Now, that doesn't fall under any of the categories that Facebook offers as far as options for someone who, a user account who dies while having a live active account on Facebook. So we still think that's an important piece for the investigators to look at. Let me go to the next thing. Kate's death. Now, Kate's death wasn't involved in this article at all. As far as David Crowley's mother, Kate Crowley, died 8 months later after this death. David Crowley's mother died. There was no information on her death, no cause of death, nothing explained in the police reports, nothing in the local paper, nothing in the obituary at all. She just died, and it was strange. Now, being the fact that she's 51 at the time and healthy, working 2 jobs and physically fit with no health ailments to note, it seems odd that she just randomly died out of the blue. The question in looking over the police reports from this case is the only person who didn't go along with the official narrative in this case with the family was his mother, Kate. She had a hard time accepting it, hard time believing the official version, and didn't really seem to buy into this whole suicide case with her son David Crowley. So what has many people questioning or creating some skepticism is why, of all the people, the only person who doubted this case winds up dead and under very suspicious circumstances. So that was not brought up, maybe not space for that in the article. Let me see if I can get Greg here back again on as well.
Hey, Dan, can you see me?
The other thing.
Can you see me or hear me? No.
Is item number 3 is the people in the house. People in the house are referring to when the case was closed, murder case was, the house was clean, for instance. The investigators cleared out the home, got the evidence, got the pictures, BCA did their testing analysis, and got everything squared away. Got the information, did their fingerprint testing, removed the bodies, did the analysis and the forensic work, and then they cleared the home for others to, for the crime scene really to be cleared. After that point, there was a scheduled appointment for the professional cleaners to come in on, I believe, the 20th of January, that following Monday. Hello, Greg.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right.
Yeah, welcome, Greg. Just going over here with the listeners, the article that came out from the city pages today. And one of the things that I saw that was not in the article, and we can get your viewpoint on this then as well. I just started talking about the things that were not included. Number one was the deleted post off Facebook. That was, in my mind, it still is a very important piece of the case. Number 2 is Kate's death. David Crowley's mother, Kate, died under suspicious circumstances. And then I was just touching on item number 3 that wasn't in the article that I think is very important is, and I want to get your input on this. The people in the house after the house's crime scene was cleared, but before the professional cleaners began or started or even attempted to start their cleaning of this house, the folks were in the house. Now that piece also wasn't brought up in the article, and I think that's an important piece for those following. What is your viewpoint on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much to it that I guess it's hard to cover everything, So that's why it's good to have people looking at it from different points, and that is probably still my biggest question. So I'm still waiting to hear back from Gummert. Haven't heard from him. I sent him a message Wednesday. So right now it's been 1 full week. So
what was the Greg? What was the contents of that question, or what was the circumstances around reaching out to Detective Gummert?
Just to ask him questions. I gave him a short list. Well, I thought it was a short list. It's 21 questions. And it just dealt with some of the questions that we still had after reading these 94 pages and going through these 464 photographs and then looking at everything else that we've been trying to follow and keep up on for a whole year. And it's just like, okay, 1 year later, we should know a lot more. We shouldn't have to dig for these answers and try to speculate on some things just to find out what is true and what is not true. This should be a very simple case. And to me, it is a very simple case. It just comes down to the fact that, well, the cops can't prove their theory. That's very, very simple. So that's where I've been starting.
And we have been in communication with Officer Gummert from the beginning, and he was actually fairly easy to work with, answered our questions and was cordial along the way. But you had very early on at the beginning asked if he would be willing to answer some questions on the case. And then when this whole investigation wrapped up and everything kind of shut down, you've got a basically response back from him saying police are no longer discussing the case. It's now closed. And then what you did was, I think in a very nice way and polite way, saying you did bring up the fact that you did had basically promised earlier to answer some questions. And then he wrote back and says, you know what, my mistake. I did promise you that I'll answer some of these questions. So what you did was forward a very fair question list that he could review. And did he say when he was going to get back to you or at all, or just basically said that he would entertain the thought of answering some of these questions?
Yeah, he basically didn't say. I didn't ask. Maybe I should have asked to say, hey, But I figured 21 questions, and they're very, there are some questions that could be answered yes or no, but I'm hoping that many of those questions will be answered very thoroughly, but we'll have to just wait and see. So.
Would Officer Gummert entertain a thought of doing a conference call or a video recording, or he turned that down?
He never turned it down. He never really, said, well, let me think about it or anything. He just pretty much brushed off that question, just with many of the questions. And he didn't want to answer any of my questions until I had read the whole 94 pages and gone through these photos too, which is fair. But it was like, okay, now that I've done that, okay, now let's talk. And it's like, it's just more of me giving him 21 written questions, and then hopefully he's gonna write us back and answer those questions. So.
And they're nothing, like you said, nothing in depth, nothing inappropriate. They're just basic surface level questions that would like to get answers on, and they shouldn't have to be anything that would take a lot of his time to investigate or research or pull up. It could be many of these are just yes or no questions. So it's and how many did you have? 21?
Yep. I actually cut it down to 21.
I think that's fair. So we'll wait to hear back from him on that. The article written by Corey Zarowski that came out in the newspaper today, I think I was telling listeners when I began the broadcast, I believe it was fair, well balanced and fair. After reading it twice, it's slanted somewhat going down the path of David Crowley having delusions of grandeur, and kind of bigger than he was. It kind of had thoughts, is how I read the article, that he kind of had a lost touch with reality to some extent. It also talks a little bit about PTSD again, which doesn't relate to a break with reality or losing touch, but it kind of, I felt it went down that road. He did a good job, I think, of interviewing friends, family, and enough outsiders to keep it fair and balanced, and including Officer Gummert himself. So I think it was a pretty balanced article. I did get the sense it was kind of heading down, not exactly the official narrative, but kind of going down the road of David slowly losing touch and not really grasping to, almost as if being a perfectionist. Was also in there several paragraphs, meaning everything had to be perfect, everything had to be right on the money for this script. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and David wrote many different lists. It did seem like he did want everything to be right, to be perfect, and that's probably why he didn't just sign over his film, back in May or even in October. I think it was, right. So
September the 2nd.
Yeah. That second time too is really key, because this article makes it seem like that was also a failure too. Like, and he's probably right. It probably was, but and he doesn't speculate on that this didn't lead David down that dark path to murder his wife or murder his daughter, but it does kind of leave that door there. It does kind of leave those thoughts there that, well, okay, maybe that's possible, and that's good, because then it gives people a road to just travel on and see how far down that road goes. I don't think it goes very, very far, really, but because everything that we've seen shows that David was planning for the future. And the other thing is, like, you have a lot of people who talk about the trailer, and we've talked about how the trailer has strayed so far from what David was going to do with this project. And I also think that's key too. If there was some type of foul play or something like that, I think that's a big thing.
I liked the article. I thought the article was really really good, very well thought out. I love the background that just covers in a very simple way David's background, his wife's background, kind of. I thought it was very well done.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was well done, well laid out, and also for the first time initial person following this case, it wasn't too in depth. It gave good foundation of the case. I also picked up on the fact that I got in reading the article is a feeling that David was rejected by these contract offers over and over again, which led him down into that depression or into that spiral. But what we've said over and again, and there's what I believe is evidence that he was the one turning down these offers. He wasn't one being rejected and leaving in an upset fashion and being depressed because things weren't going his way, but he was conducting the negotiations on his terms, essentially. And when it didn't come into the way that he wanted it to go, he walked, as he told his father on that text message. I walked away from it. It wasn't what I was looking to do. And we know that keeping the creative rights and ownership of the script was his of utmost importance. And a lot of these big money offer deals were involved giving that up, and I don't think that would have been a David Crowley's angle that he would have enjoyed. But that's a sense that I got. There was some discussion this past week on the Justice for David Crowley of Gray State Facebook page. The last 6 or 7 days, kind of to some extent heated, with people saying no, he got rejected, and this took its toll. And several of the members on that page were saying, no, he was the one turning down these offers. He was proud. He had a pride level and didn't want to accept anything that was not on his terms. So that's a big difference. And in the whole article I read from Corey Zarowski, the feeling I got was the sense that he was rejected over and over and trying to do what he could to sell the script. And the only quote in the whole article was my own that says that David Crowley walked away from the offer. He walked. He did not get rejected. He turned them down. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's really clear. I think you made that very clear. I don't know why people are coming up with these theories that contradict what David Crowley said, and during those times when he said them. He was looking to do something with this film. He made it very clear, I think as early as September maybe, that if he couldn't find some big film people, if he couldn't find some Hollywood studio to actually make this film the way he actually wanted to, then he was just going to do it himself. I think that's a big key. I just wish he would have done it sooner, but that's woulda, shoulda, coulda. It doesn't matter now. But
correct. I think that the other thing that I noticed in reading the article is the way it was written is kind of shed David Crowley in a light of being a two-face. He knew he wasn't going to get Hollywood to buy into this movie, but at the same time, he kept crawling back again and again to try to sell it to him. And what I think David Crowley was doing, and I'm no movie producer, but he had a gut feeling that the big studios in Hollywood were not going to buy this film, and he was already expected for that to fail. But he did know that it was going to get picked up or done by an independent label or an independent company or something much smaller, may or may not have been still in Hollywood, but not a top-level movie production company. So I think he already knew that wasn't going to fly, and that's a fair statement to make. Anyone pitching a movie he was delving into, the odds of that coming out from a high-level big Hollywood production company is slim to none, and I think he knew that. And he was trying to pitch it, I think, first of all to the big movie places. Mm-hmm. A couple times it didn't work. He figured that was the case, I believe, and then he was starting to pitch down to a smaller size to this producer named Jason Allen in the month of December, the same month as the deaths, and he said, I said, I think you're the right kind of guy that could take this, and that was a much smaller production company than the big ones. But I think the article led to the point of, why was he going to Hollywood when he knows they weren't going to pick it up anyway? So I'm thinking in terms of big production houses, medium, and then small. And I think he was knowing he was going to zoom in and land at this level down here, but was going to give these guys a shot first, which didn't happen. And then he was settling in down here at the Jason Allen level. And if that didn't work, he could have gone independent or done it himself. But he had to give the options to try it to see if anyone would bite on this, like he called it, investor bait, to see if anyone was going to look at this. But so I don't think he's really two-faced at all. There was a comment too saying he wasn't in for the money, but he made a comment that he was going to be a millionaire by year's end. I think that could all be taken with a grain of salt. That was a fact. I think he would have been a millionaire at the end of the year, not necessarily that he was bragging that he wanted to become that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, everything he told his dad is very key too, because first his dad is saying that while he's at Rainey's 5th birthday party, David tells him that he loves him, and he makes a very clear point to point this out and to point out that was strange, almost as if that's something David wouldn't actually tell him. Like they didn't have that type of bond. And so it just kind of goes against the whole thought that David was distancing himself from his family. We don't really know what type of relationship he had with his family. This could have been going on for years. So we can't just think that, well, in these last months, then he just all of a sudden, didn't talk to anybody. He wasn't talking to people for a long time. And I think that's very, very clear. So go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, Corey, one of the last things that Corey does say in here is he talks about the pact between David and David's wife. Did you catch that in there?
I didn't. I looked at it a couple times, but I didn't see the pact mentioned.
It's one of the last things that he says, that the cops think that the wife played along because she bowed to David's untold emotional and psychological. What does that mean? Because
I did read that. I did have to read it twice because I think at the same time it wasn't alluding to a pact. Okay. But it alluded to the fact, I believe, that she was very submissive to him, and if this was the route he wanted to go, essentially holding himself up in the house to get this script done, she was going along with it. And I think that, and that way, we don't want people to mistaken that for being a pact, which I think that maybe his mother first said. She said in the police report that, and I think this is where this all came from, this suicide pact. Kate Crowley made a comment in the police report by saying, I don't think that he would have done this unless there was some sort of agreement with his wife. And I think she just said that in passing. And I believe that the investigators, in talking with Sean Wright and Mason Hendricks down the road, suggested a pact was possibly in place, maybe just to get a gut feel for what their response was. And I think that's how that all came into play, because as of yet, we have seen no evidence to suggest a suicide pact at all. So I think Corey worded it, I think, good by not saying it was a pact, but worded it just vague enough that will lead some readers to think that maybe she went along with it. But I think that could leave room, like how you interpreted it. And you're a big follower of the case, and you potentially could have taken it the wrong way. Imagine the newbies coming in. So I had to read that twice. I did have to, because I thought, what exactly does that mean? But I think he meant it different than, and we know there was no suicide pact, but the fact that he said the words that she went along with it may lead readers to go down that avenue, which I don't. That's my opinion, but I don't buy that there was anything to do with an agreement or a pact whatsoever. So,
well, we don't even know if there was a suicide in this case. So, of course, it's like, so anyone speculating on some type of a suicide pact is obviously speculating that David Crowley is guilty. So
Correct.
it's like they're speculation on top of speculation. Then they get into why, and they add a third layer of speculation. And pretty soon, all you have is speculation built upon other theories that have led to nowhere, that have not led to any truth, that have not led to any facts. And we're still at point one, and that's why I think we're just scratching the surface of this whole case, just barely scratching it. I think this is going to be something, a case that is going to linger for many, many years, just because how everything's played out.
I agree, because we're also dealing with many layers, I believe, as well. It's not just a clean cut kind of a whodunit kind of a case. It's a lot. It's very in depth, I think, and we don't want to, what I would call, oversimplify a case like this. As far as what we believe, I think, in my opinion and yours, that the police and the investigators oversimplified, looked to what they saw, came to a conclusion, which I called it in the article, rushing to judgment, when there's a lot of complex things going on behind the scenes in a case like this. And like you said, if you start going after the pact, you're basing that on that there was a suicide. If you're assuming a suicide took place, it's a stretch, I think, when you don't have a suicide note and you don't have fingerprints on a weapon and you don't have a motive. Those are three things that you need for a suicide, I believe, to make it a slam dunk. And we don't have any of those things. So I'm more of a belief that it's still, in my book, the deaths of these three are undetermined. There are a lot of folks who come on these justice pages and Twitter and some of the comments on Facebook just to say, where's your evidence? Where's your proof that it's a cover-up? Where's your evidence, or where's there a proof that David didn't do this, that someone else did it? My answer, and it still is to this day, is we don't have evidence that anything took place. We don't have the suicide doesn't jive, because did someone murder them? I don't know. David's shotgun blast gunshot with the handgun was in the forehead like this. So
well, how do we know that if they didn't find any of his head either? How do they know where he was shot?
The only thing they know on the police report show that there's an exit wound in the back above his spine. Now, the back of his head was the exit hole. So they put two and two together and knew that the shot had to come from the front of the face somehow.
Okay.
So that to me is odd when you're looking at a suicide to shoot yourself in the forehead. But we don't have evidence yet, like you mentioned, of a suicide taking place. Now, is there evidence that someone came in and killed them? I don't believe so. I don't know if there ever will be that. Was it a hit? Was it any sort of combination of things? I think the point that you and I are trying to make, and the people on our page, is that we don't know, and we're just trying to get answers as far as this should be an open, and it should be fairly easy. Now, with police looking at what they have and ruling it a suicide, that's where I made the statement in that article that offends me as a citizen, that there wasn't any additional work done to come to that conclusion. Now, it looks like that was what happened, but anyone jumping into the case is going to assume that. So did the taxpayers and the tax-provided funding of these police officers and detectives go to a full, wide-ranging investigation to find the truth, or did they know the odds were not going to be on their side to find a truth one way or the other, and this was the easy play because there was no other alternatives that came into play, which I think also could very easily be the case.
Yeah, and that also, you also have to think, well, were the FBI involved? Was there any other people involved in this? So that's also been key too, because I've wondered why it's kind of taking Gummert so long to answer those questions, and I'm wondering who he has to get clearance from, because I'm guessing that he has to get clearance from someone, and maybe that someone might not let him answer those questions either.
Well, and that would be key as well, because many times comments that I will say sometimes is what you don't hear sometimes gives you more information than what you do hear. And things like that with repeated questions back, we're not getting answers back. You could be right on the money. That could be a nice, easy way of saying, you know what, we can't give it to you. Now, we haven't heard that anyone else was involved officially. But friends close to the case, at least two of them had said that both DHS and FBI have or are actively involved in this case. Do you think
That's right.
either of those two are, or the chances that those two agencies are involved in a case like this that's simply local?
I would hope not, but I didn't really see any reason for them to be involved in the Philip Marshall case either, but yet they were there. I mean, there was someone there. I'm not sure who exactly it was, but so I'm just wondering that same thing here. But I guess really it's really on us now. And I've talked about doing this, and I just haven't followed through on it yet, is contacting them and finding out. And I think that's the only way. So that's what I'm going to hopefully be able to do within the next day or two. So
Would they, would local police like that be able to say, we can't comment because those other agencies are involved? Or can they come out and say they're simply not involved, and we find out later that they are? So what you might get here for us, Greg, is no answer just because of the fact that they're stuck. But
yeah, but they have to answer it in some type of way. Even by not giving us anything, it's still going to give us somewhere we can go. So it's just kind of, testing them and just seeing, well, okay, was there someone there? Was there not someone there? What did they say? Does it contradict what somebody else says? And I think that's kind of where, sadly, that's where we're basically at. I wouldn't say we're right back to square one, because we've come very, very far. And most of these theories, most of these things that we've been talking about, we've been able to really follow through with them and see how they line up with other people's theories. And I don't know about you, but the main thing that I'm finding out is many of the people who think that David Crowley is guilty, their stories are not adding up. They're all different. And that's been one of my biggest problems here, is that doesn't make sense. I mean, even if they were all lying, trying to tell the same lie, their stories would match up. But man, you have so many people with differing stories that it's just like, okay, there's something here. There's something here, and whatever the truth is, we're going to find that out.
well, let's say, just for devil's advocate, say David pulled this off just as it was stated in the narrative and the official narrative. Let's say that he did do this. Now, the article also goes on to say, in the City Pages article, it updates the folks out there who are unaware of what happened to the bodies. It does say that the Comel's body was sent to Texas to be buried. It says David's body was cremated and his remains are in the Twin Cities. And the next piece of information is crucial. It says Ranny, the 5-year-old daughter, her body was cremated and half of her ashes went with the father and half with the mother. Now, if you were, let's say David did this, who would have their daughter buried in an urn with the killer? Who made that decision?
Well, they're not in the same urn, are they?
Well, they're buried together, maybe separate urns, same location.
Have to be separate urns for sure, but
separate urns.
Yeah, but even
if my murderer I wouldn't want to have someone making the decision to be me buried next to my murderer if the official statement was the murderer was my family member. Why on earth would that decision be made to be part of David's life at all? So for those who do buy the official story, that's a tough one to get their head around, because that's tough to explain why you'd want to have the remains in here with a psychopathic psycho.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's many times where there's like double speak, where people will speak positively about David, but they also think that he killed his wife and killed his daughter. Okay, well it's a complete contradiction. I don't see how he could have been both, but that's a whole nother thing, I guess. I don't understand. So the wife was buried. Why wasn't the daughter buried? Why wasn't Rainey buried?
She was cremated.
Cremate, because wasn't David supposed to be a Christian or something? Because I know, like, you're not supposed to do that either as Christians. So,
well, in Christianity, it's becoming more popular. It's still, I wouldn't say it's the preferred way to burial, but I'm seeing more and more of it as far as going the route of cremation. Now, for a Muslim of Muslim faith that Comel's parents were, and I believe her sister still is, that's one thing you would never do is cremate yourself. So that her being buried makes sense, that whether she was Christian or whether she was Muslim, because she never would have been cremated. David was cremated, maybe upon his wishes or without his wishes. I don't know who made that decision, but when I see cremation next to a suspicious death, it also raises the red flags, as well as far as getting rid of the body and getting rid of evidence. So, but Ranny, it did say that she was cremated also. So there's no way then that she would have been Muslim if that would have been the case. So I think her remains now. If the family would have died in an automobile accident or any other way, just a normal accident, I could see her ashes being divvied up with both parents. But once again, it's hard to comprehend if you buy it and go along with the story, that you would actually go through and have your body there remains next to your very own killer who killed you in a violent manner.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about it now, I do wonder if there was some type of problem that some of the family had with cremating this daughter, because I don't know, maybe it's not that big of a thing, but it just, to me, it seems, I don't know, it just seems weird. But
I think if you were to divvy up the remains, that's the only way, obviously you could do it, because the body would have to go one place or the other. So that would make sense. But now we've got this angle of the killer being the father. So it's hard to explain that away. But cremation, it's very popular here in the Twin Cities, regardless of your religion, I believe. I think it's very common.
Well, I think that the Muslims, when they talk about that, I think they're kind of coming somewhat from the same source, from some of parts of the scripture too. But so I don't know. I do wonder, is it cheaper too?
The whole process is cheaper, I believe, because you're not dealing with a large casket and a plot and a gravestone and whatever else there might be with it. So it will be a cheaper way to go, more inexpensive. That would be true. That would be the case. That's my opinion. I don't know. The other thing I saw not mentioned in the article is the GoFundMe, the campaign there for the Comel's mother, Nyla Alam, with her battling cancer and the when she didn't have insurance for that. And the fundraiser was raised looking for $6 million.
Oh yeah,
8,000, and then that was canceled out. So that wasn't, and there probably wasn't room for that. But I do believe, from a true investigation, that's a key point in this case. why
Well,
something like that would be done and then swiftly stopped, and the whole thing surrounding that was quite odd. And I think that was all that I had for reading the article. That was my. Looks like I had a total of 6 things. The people in the house, Dan Crowley Jr. and David August, Danny August Mason, Mason Hendricks, David's buddy Adam, and Chris Klein, all in the house, either before or during the house was being cleaned, and before it was professional, before the professional cleaners were done, or perhaps some have speculated before they even started, they were in that house and in the attic rummaging through things. What is your take on have the police adequately followed up with some of those leads? Have they done anything with that, or do they kind of let some of those anomalies slide?
Yeah, they haven't been clear on it. So I'm hoping that maybe Gummert will answer that question. That's one of the biggest ones. Why were these people there? If the I don't know. It seems like the whole crime scene, I think on the very first page, they say that they came at about 12, but they had cleared the whole crime scene, whatever cleared means. They had cleared it by like 5 that same day. So when were these cleaners there? Were the cleaners there on the 18th through the 19th and the 20th? And it's also... I'm also wondering what time did Chris Klein and Mason and whoever else went there too. When did they actually go there? They probably went. My guess is that they went at night, because I don't know if you would necessarily call in a suspicious person during the day, but it kind of makes more sense maybe if it was at day, because how does the neighbor who calls the cops, how do they get a good visual to say that, oh yeah, that's Chris Klein there, and then call the cops and then tell them that. So it's just like we've just been given so very, very little. It seems like we were given many of the reports when they first came in. And if you just go by that, most of those reports in the 94 pages were made on January 20th or January 22nd. That's when most of them, it seems like they were kind of done, and they were basically wrapping everything up. And they don't tell you anything. They don't find anything in that house that says why David is guilty. They don't find anything in the house that, for me, would even lead them to speculate on any type of a theory about who did what. I mean, come on. First of all, their hands are missing. So why do we assume that it's their hands, that it's David's hands that are writing this blood on this wall? When they went into that house, how long did it take them to figure out that it was David's hand writing in his wife's blood? I mean, that takes time. There's no way that they could have figured all of this out by the time that all of these news articles first came out, that were basically saying that police were treating this as a double murder suicide, and that was it. Everything was like, okay, that's where we're starting from. It wasn't, we're starting from what happened. That's where our group, our Facebook group, that's where I see us starting from, is what happened. And it can go off into many different ways, but we're not starting with the theory that David Crowley is innocent, and we're not starting with the theory that David Crowley is guilty. There can still be justice served if he's guilty. And there can be justice served if he's not guilty too. That's just my view on it.
That's correct. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, it's a tough call. I'd rather go from the angle of innocent until proven guilty, and if there's evidence there that David did this, then show us the evidence. We'll all move on with their lives. If there's no evidence to show that he did it, I believe that you'd be left with the only option is to classifying this as undetermined death, and throwing out all the information you can and just say that we don't know. We believe it's him who did it. There's no evidence to conclude that he did it, but let's throw it as label it as an undetermined and move on. You certainly can do that, but I don't know. I think
is it possible for them to go back later, even if it's 10, 20 years from now, and get to where we can get them to put that on record, to change it from a double murder suicide to undetermined? I mean, how realistic is that?
It's a stretch, but it can be done, and it has been done. A lot of times in a case like this, the people who think there's foul play involved will demand the case get reopened to get started again, and sometimes that's the harder thing to do, because you very rarely will anyone just start and open up a case again and open it up and redo the investigation and everything else. But if you just change the cause of death to undetermined, once that's done, it's easier then to get a case reopened to investigate in earnest. That's the next step. That's the next step. But what I would be interested in is not saying that the police did a good or a bad job or whatever kind of a job, because we're not here to point fingers. But it seems to me that the ruling of the deaths should be undetermined until we've got evidence to show that David did this. If he did it, show us the evidence now. We'll close it up. I've got better things to do with my time, and so do you. If there's no evidence that he did it, then why would you say then that why would they say that he did it? If you don't know, my point is, as far as starting the justice page, is you don't know. No one knows what happened here. If the investigators do, and they've got evidence to make this a slam dunk case, show us the evidence and we'll move on. So far, that hasn't been done. And in fact, it mentions in the article here with the last two paragraphs of the story, asking Officer Gumbert himself. And he says, I wish there was more evidence that we can show. I wish we could finalize and show people what happened to really prove this case. Basically saying he doesn't know himself. He doesn't know what else they can do to dig into finding this information. So what I'm saying is, and I think our group is under the persuasion of not admit it if you don't know it. It just kind of goes down that path. If you don't have the evidence, say we don't know, and we'll either keep looking into it or let the case go cold or whatever you need to do. But the fact that within 48 hours they slam dunked this case, and you've got writing on the wall written in blood that took days or weeks to do to find out that was Comel's blood, which it turned into, I believe, once they found it was her blood, they deduced the fact that she couldn't have been the one doing the writing. It must have been David, because it obviously wasn't Randy. So I think they backed into it that way. And when you start doing an investigation for a crime this big, when you start backing into results that you hope to get out of it, I think the intent is wrong.
Yeah, and it's just crazy. There's nothing that they found there that leads me to think, why would they think that David Crowley's guilty? I mean, the guy, they didn't know if he was right-handed or left-handed. They really don't mention it. It's like they didn't even check that out. They didn't see, well, was David right-handed or was he left-handed? Well, we found the gun next to his left hand. He must have been left-handed. His right hand wasn't there. It's just crazy. I really don't understand it. I think their biggest problem that they're going to have is that Chris Klein story, because there's a bullet right above your head, man. How do you, not a bullet, but a bullet hole right above your head in the most crucial area, because this is not only the area where the bodies were found, but this is the area where that big, Allah thing was actually written. I mean, everything is here and you don't look up and see it. There's something really wrong here. There's really something else has to be going on here, and I'm not sure what it is. The
one thing that I did also see in the article that I forgot to mention earlier is the article does say, and it almost appears to be going out of its way to say, when the cops opened the door the stench of the bodies knocked them over to something. So I've got two issues with that. Number one, remember they entered in the back through this rear slider, so they didn't open any door. They slid that back door open and just simply went in. They didn't grab a knob and open a door to enter the house. And there was no mention in that police audio of anyone gagging or mentioning anything about how horrendous the smell was. This seems to be now another thing that's been planted in the subsequent stories of how bad the smell was after we brought it up. That police audio shows those first officers on scene waiting for the catch pole to come for the dog, going into the house, and first words out of their mouth were, "Is the main level's clear?" And 20 seconds later, it says the basement has been cleared. No one has mentioned once, "Oh, grab me a bat mask," or "Oh, is it awful?" Or you don't hear any gagging reflexes on that audio, or no one even mentioning how bad it was. But yet the story came out on today's press release, painting a very vivid picture of how awful the stench was before the first officers on the scene grabbed that doorknob and opened up that front door. Well, they went in through the back door and there was no gagging going on for the smell at all. So that may have been something to, once again, paint a clear picture, but no one, as that audio is going to, anyone who's listened to the audio, let me put it this way. If you haven't been familiar with the story for the first time, readers, they're going to think, boy, the smell really knocked them over. Now, remember, bodies decomposing in that state are going to be the worst in the first week, then the second week, and by the third week, somewhat, it could be almost non-existent. It's going to smell, but not that bad as compared to the first 2 weeks. So the level of the smell, that story has changed all through the past year as well, from nothing to smell to how bad it was to the BCA people coming in were in full masks, in biohazard gear to clean that house and to, so there's been stories that are not consistent, I think is the main word is consistency. The other thing with Chris Klein being in that house, he made a report directly to police saying he was there with Dan Sr. and Dan Crowley Jr. Now, some have mentioned perhaps there was a typo in the police report and they got the senior and junior mixed up. Well, with the police, but the statement says Dan Sr. and Dan Jr., he was in the house with both of them. Now,
right, go ahead.
Dan Sr. says, I was never in that house with Chris Klein, ever.
Right.
So my question now to investigators, which I think was part of your 21 questions, is I'm assuming they follow up with that. That couldn't be taken too lightly to have someone outright lie to you during a murder investigation. But was Chris Klein brought in a third time? Was he questioned more heavily because of his inconsistencies, or do they just let it go? That to me is a very leading question by how they treated the lies in the testimony that was given in these statements. And I was in the attic, and I found we saw a bullet hole, and I was in the attic. Well, and then police find the second bullet fragment in late February, but then the cleaners are there the first week of the home, and a loose bullet fragment comes out from under the rug. So we want the other thing that's important to note for the first time readers to this article or following the case is that police were there 3 different times and found evidence 3 different times. So was it a thorough investigation or not when you roll up a piece of carpeting and a bullet fragment falls out and they said, oh, I guess we missed this earlier, or there's a bullet hole above the ceiling, I guess we missed this earlier. That to me is not saying the investigators did a good or bad job. That's just a fact that it was just plain and simple missed. And that to me, I find that offensive that you've got investigators as a career to do this detective work, and you miss 2 things as blatant as that would be a slam dunk, I'm guessing. So what are your thoughts there? Greg, you still with us? I think he cut out. So that's kind of an overview of not pointing fingers of who's doing a right job and who's doing a wrong job. It's who's doing an inadequate job is I think the point of a case like this. That's all that I've got. We were going to be trying to jump in with Robert Elliott here as well, but I believe he's running late. Greg, it appears, has jumped off the call, and we will go from there. But this is a good update here, I think, from this article. Get a chance to read it. It's on citypages.com. It's entitled "The Strange and Tragic Demise of a Minnesota Filmmaker and His Family," entitled Final Cut. Today is March 23rd, 2016. Once again, this is Dan Hennon coming to you live with this update here on the David Crowley family deaths in the state of Minnesota. Good night. Hello, my name is Dan Hennon. I'm joined today with Greg Fernandez Jr. We'll be talking about the Crowley family deaths in bodies were discovered January of 2015. Today is March 2nd of 2017. Welcome, Greg.
Thanks, Dan.
And what we're going to cover today is there never has been an episode or discussion on this case regarding the dog. The dog, the Crowley family dog, was a male 1-year-old beagle mix named Paleo. And I guess the main concern was after the bodies were found, the family of 3 were dead in December of 2014. The dog survived for over 3 weeks additionally in that home before the bodies were found by the neighbors on January 17th of 2015. And after looking the police report photos, we don't see water dish, water bowl, food bowl, whatnot. And we think that common sense tells us the dog would have obviously finished off the water in the water dishes. But then after those were emptied, what was the dog's next source of water in the home for drinking water? And all we have is the pictures from the police reports that show the 3 bathrooms. And so I think tonight we'll spend some time going through the options for the dog and what it used to drink from. The bodies were in the home, and those also speculate that the dog could have fed off the bodies for food, which it appears that he did, and scavenged and ravaged the bodies. But for drinking, did the dog drink the blood? Maybe the dog needs drinking water, fresh drinking water every day, if not multiple times a day, just to survive. And once that runs out, what are the options? I mean, the dog did look skinny and gaunt, I believe, when police arrived. But anyway, it's a topic that I think needs to be explored at least a little bit for this home. What are your thoughts on the drinking water for the dog?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I don't believe the police ever really mentioned which toilets were open and which ones weren't. Did they?
No, they never did. And we tried to get this from them, and even I think from the family, to say, a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom home there in Apple Valley where they lived, online records show that there is only 2 bathrooms in that house. And some said, well, they think the toilet lids were up. No, we think they were closed. And so I think you and I at the beginning of this case were met with some frustration with no one really knew about the toilet seats, not even the police.
Sure.
So we had to wait till the police photos came out, and that's when it was revealed that David had indeed remodeled that basement and added a bathroom in the basement. So there was a total of 3 toilets in the home. And then when the police photos came out, we were able to ascertain, for the viewers looking on this screen, I've got the 3 photos up on the screen. The master bathroom was closed. The lid, in fact, was closed, so the dog didn't have access there. The image on the top left in the main floor bathroom that Ranny used, the lid was open, but it appears to be a diaper or a couple paper towels in that toilet. And then the bottom one in the basement, wide open, completely gone. It looks like all the water was drained out of that. The dog at least looked like that was the main